7, 0, 8, 2, 8, 7, 0, 9, 8, 6, 8, 0, 9, 8, 6, 8, 0, 5, 0, 5, 5.
What you gonna do? I say, oh yes, oh Welcome to the Insomnia stream. Bob LAZAR edition. I'm your host, of course, Devin Stack. Hope you're having a good weekend. We're going to talk about aliens tonight. We're going to talk about aliens tonight. That's right. Oh, the aliens are here. Lots of talk about aliens. See, it always comes back.
Could this shocking incident have been motivated by racism?
It could be. Racist aliens. Well, we got a lot to kind of get into. I was not expecting the amount the amount of weird information I was going to have to dig through to get to. I just wasn't. I knew I'd find things. I didn't realize the kinds of things I would find. But yeah, tonight, obviously, it's about Bob LAZAR. Bob LAZAR is most people have heard the name by now, right? He's part of pop culture at this point. Bob LAZAR, the Area 51 whistleblower. He's been in the news in one way or another since the late 1980s. More recently on shows like Joe Rogan. Talking about the incredible sights that he saw. In fact, Area 51, as much as that is a meme today and everyone just associates that with aliens, you might not realize that wasn't until Bob LAZAR. Bob LAZAR is the reason why, like in the movie Independence Day as an example, when they go to Area 51 and they have the aliens there. If it wasn't for Bob LAZAR, that would not have been in the movie. A lot of X-Files, I guess you could say, is probably a result of Bob LAZAR. And look, the alien craze of the 1990s, a lot of that was fueled, in part, by Bob LAZAR. So, Bob LAZAR. A lot of people, like I said, a lot of people know the deal. But for those who don't know, those of you who have no idea who Bob LAZAR is, let's take a look at the official story, right? The official story, how people understand the, Bob LAZAR story through popular culture.
No one had associated flying saucers with Area 51 until Bob LAZAR's interview hit television screens around the world. He said that he worked at an underground facility called S4. The top secret project was codenamed Galileo.
They would call it a specific time. For instance, the operator would say, "Mr. LAZAR, it's now 4:15 a.m. We expect you to be at McCarran Airport at 4:45. Your plane will be leaving at such and such time." I'd drive there, check in, board the plane, and the plane would fly out to Groom Lake. It would land there. I'd get off the plane and wait, and there would be a bus to take me and whoever else is going to S4, Papoose Lake, which is about 15 miles south of there. And then I would check in at S4.
Tell me about how you felt on your very first trip out.
The first trip out there it was actually very exciting because it seemed so cloak and dagger to me, especially after I got in the bus with the blacked out windows. I kind of thought that was neat. Drove out to the site, and then it was checked in, guards walking around with guns, and I was sure what I was working on was going to be pretty fascinating.
Oh, this all sounds very spooky. All sounds very spooky. They call him and say, in a half hour, You must go to the airport. You must be there, and the plane's going to leave. And it'd be 4:15 in the morning, they would call him. And he would have to scramble, get to the airport, fly to this secret base out in the desert, where he would do what exactly? So it does sound very cloak and dagger, Bob.
What are the dark secrets that lie inside Area 51? The American government denies that this place even exists. But this Russian satellite photo tells a different story, showing huge hangars and an enormous runway. The place is Area 51 in the Nevada desert. It was built in the 1950s to test top-secret aircraft. The stealth fighter was developed here. Security's tight inside and outside the base. American scientist Robert LAZAR claimed he worked in the highest security section called S4.
The security was unbelievably oppressive. There was a security guard everywhere following you all the time. There was never any free discussion allowed, which is the basis of science.
Recently, LAZAR caused a sensation when he revealed that he'd been ordered to investigate the propulsion systems of captured alien spacecraft.
Whoa! He was asked to look at the propulsion systems of a captured alien spacecraft. Well, this guy must be one of the top minds in that field. In order for them to go through all these cloak and dagger type operations and just to allow him to view this alien technology that has been captured. He must be one of the top brains in alien propulsion. I mean, he is, after all, he is a physicist, right? That's what they said. So he's a physicist, and he's working all the time on this secret base. Now, meanwhile, around this same time, you had UFO fever kind of going on in the United States. George Knapp, who worked for KLAS, was an investigative reporter that would do series on different happenings in the Las Vegas area. And he decided to cover this UFO fever that was seizing the nation. You know, lots of prominent figures, like John Lear, who we'll talk about in a moment, discussing secret underground bases, treaties with the aliens that the government had, moon bases, bases on Mars, secret intergalactic wars going on, cattle mutilations. Oh, all this stuff was starting to creep up. I mean, it really began in the 1970s. Well, it began before then, but it started to really take hold in the 1970s. If you remember the Heaven's Gate cult, when we talked about them, that's when they gained a lot of their followers, was in the 1970s. People were convinced that the universe was teeming with alien life, just itching to come down and fuck with America, or I guess the whole world. So George Knapp put on this series to cover this phenomenon.
Some people might object to the use of the words UFOs and evidence in the same sentence. However, there is now a staggering amount of information on this subject, collected not by crackpots, but by respected, mainstream, level-headed people who want to know what, if anything, is going on. What we've tried to do is sift through as much of this information as possible to see if there's anything to it. In part one of UFOs, The Best Evidence, we explore whether the subject has been treated fairly by the establishment.
If you have a question, feel free to give us a call. Hi, you're next on the Billy Goodman thing on KVEG. The eggplant that ate Chicago, you remember that, huh?
And what was your encounter like, may I ask?
Billy Goodman's radio talk show is heard nightly in 10 western states, stretching from Canada to Mexico. Previously, the topic of choice was Elvis Presley's present whereabouts, but the focus drifted into UFOs, and Goodman's phone lines have been lit up ever since.
Oh, well, tell us about the last time when you were abducted, the very last time.
Oh, you got Billy Goodman. Billy the Jew Goodman. I guess you could say maybe a precursor to Art Bell. Doing nationally syndicated shows out of KVEG, talking about aliens. Lots of people calling up saying they've been abducted, that they've seen aliens and UFOs flying over their house. You had the crop circle stuff going on around this time. You had the movies. A lot of the movies had aliens, like E.T., Jewish filmmakers making a lot of alien movies. You got to remember Spielberg made E.T. after making Close Encounters. You had Alien Nation, which was a hot new series. We've covered that. We've done an Alien Nation stream before where it was a very pro-immigration. It was basically like a white genocide show that was projecting all the anxieties that white people had onto aliens instead of illegal aliens. Quite the show. I'd recommend that stream if you haven't seen it. I think it's called Alien Nation Edition, so it's actually I think it has some crazy name. You had John Lear. John Lear, who was very wealthy, an heir to his father, who made a ton of money. In fact, he was a pioneer in radio technology. His father, in fact, the name Motorola comes from his dad invented the first car radio, and they called it the Motorola. And it was so popular that they changed the name to Motorola. And that's where we have Motorola, is from his dad making a car radio. He also invented, back in the 1920s and 30s, when you had battery-operated radios, because a lot of people didn't have electricity going to their house. So they would charge up these big car batteries to run their radios. And once people started getting electricity, he invented the battery eliminator, which would, it was basically an AC adapter. It was like an AC adapter for these big ass radios. And so you could operate off of the power. They invented a lot of stuff, miniaturized a lot of radio components that led to the more modern, smaller radios that we would have in later decades. And then eventually, of course, if especially in the 80s, if you thought of private jet, what did you think? Learjet. Well, that was their company, was the Learjet. And they were pretty much, I think that was the only game in town, really. And his son, John Lear, was he was kind of a rich kid that learned to fly at a very, very, very young age. And he was going around telling people that the government had secret treaties with the aliens, and that there were secret moon bases. And people were like, well, damn, I mean, if this guy believes it, I mean, he's like super rich and smart and comes from this genius stock. I mean, he's got to know what's going on, right? Then you had grifty Jews and, people like this guy.
We have a society today which accepts the basic notion of space travel, of visits by different kinds of beings to other places. That's a big step in just one generation.
In just one generation, we got the goyim to believe in aliens. Look at that. He looks so pleased with himself. Very pleased with himself. So you had these UFO conventions, and a surprising number of the people involved are Jewish, by the way. I started noticing this like a couple of years ago when I started re-listening to some of these Art Bell broadcasts. Like, I didn't have Judar when I was a kid listening to this stuff. And now it's just like every other guest is a Jew. And it's like, oh, wow. And like the worst ones, like the really obviously lying ones are almost always Jewish, with a couple exceptions. So, you know, you had all this UFO propaganda going around and people were really excited. And then George Knapp, he scored big time. He scored big time. Because there was a lot of rumors flying around about the government and these secret underground bases and all this other stuff and intergalactic warfare. But finally, George Knapp got an insider. He got an insider. Known only as Dennis initially. Dennis went on to his show and spilled the beans. He said he worked for Area 51 and that he knew that they had alien spaceships there. He'd seen them up close. In fact, he went with George Knapp. I think went along with them, but he definitely took John Lear to go look, do UFO sightseeing around Area 51. So here is Dennis, who, of course, ends up being Bob Lazar.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs, that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
The live interview with the shadowy Dennis drew international attention. Portions were broadcast by radio in 6 European countries and in a nationally televised TV special in Japan.
Actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs.
Despite numerous inquiries and feelers, Dennis has remained anonymous until now. His real name is Robert Lazar, a young scientist with eclectic interests. The choice of Dennis was an inside joke. He says that's the name of his superior at Groom Lake. It wasn't a joke to Dennis.
He called right after and he said, "Do you have any idea what we're going to do to you now?" And I said, "Well, no." He hung up the phone.
Lazar's story is by any standards fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself. He says he was hired to work at an area called S4, which is a few miles south of Groom Lake. At S4, he says, are flying saucers, antimatter reactors, and other working examples of technology that is seemingly beyond human capabilities.
Right, this came from somewhere else. I mean, as bizarre as that is to believe, but I mean, it's there. I saw it. I know what the current state of the art is in physics, and it can't be done.
Checking out Lazar's credentials proved to be a difficult task. He says he earned degrees in physics and electronics, but the schools we contacted say they've never heard of him. He also said he worked as a physicist at Los Alamos National Lab, where he experimented with one of the world's largest particle beam accelerators, a half-mile-long behemoth capable of generating 700 million volts. Los Alamos officials told us they had no records of a Robert Lazar ever working there. They were either mistaken or were lying. A 1982 phone book from the lab lists Lazar right there among the other scientists and technicians.
Oh, it's all a cover-up. It's all a cover-up. As you can see, here is proof. Right there. Proof that he's on the telephone directory. The men in black over at Los Alamos were trying to conduct a cover-up. But wait, there's even more proof.
A 1982 clipping from the Los Alamos newspaper profiled Lazar and his interest in jet cars. It, too, mentioned his employment at the lab as a physicist. We called Los Alamos again. An exasperated official told us he still had no records on Lazar. EG&G, which is where Lazar says he was interviewed for the job at S4, also has no records. It's as if someone has made him disappear.
Well, they're trying to make me a non-person.
Explain. You called where?
Well, the schools that I went to, the hospital that I was born at, past job, and essentially nothing comes up with my name in it.
He smiles, but out of futility, knowing the whole thing must sound ridiculous. According to LAZAR, his employer was the United States Navy. He says he and other government employees would gather near EG&G, fly to Groom Lake, and then a very few people would get into a bus with blacked out or no windows and drive to S4.
When you get off the bus, what do you see? It's a very interesting building. It's got a slope of probably about 30 degrees, which are hangar doors. And it has textured paint on it, but it looks like sand. It's made to look like the side of the mountain that it's in, whether it's to disguise it from satellite photographs or what.
He says he was never told exactly what he'd be working on, but figured it had something to do with advanced propulsion. On his first day, he was told to read a series of briefings and immediately realized how advanced the propulsion was.
The power source is an antimatter reactor. They run gravity amplifiers.
Oh, they got gravity amplifiers. That's some kind of crazy alien space technology. So they got this highly qualified physicist answering phone calls at 4 a.m., flying him out there to study and backwards engineer these gravity amplifiers, very tight security. And yet, for some reason, in 1989 now, he's going to the press, spilling the beans on what he knows. Humanity has a right to know.
There's actually two parts to the drive mechanism. It's a bizarre technology. There's no physical hookup between any of the systems in there. They use gravity as a wave, using waveguides, almost like microwaves.
It took a while, LAZAR says, before he actually saw one of the flying discs. However, there were hints everywhere.
Right, they had a poster, and it looked like a commercial poster almost, like it was lithographed and you could buy it at a Kmart or something. But they were all over the place, and it had the disc that I coined the term the sport model, was lifted off the ground about 3 feet at area S4 on the dry lake there, and the caption on the bottom said, "They're here." And
no, they got posters on the walls with a UFO that he calls the sports model, plastered all over the place with the tongue-in-cheek slogan, "They're here." Certainly, that's exactly what you'd expect to see at a high-security facility where they're trying to keep it under wraps that they're here. But they've got a sense of humor. These scientists. I mean, it was the 80s. They're like the scientists in Far Side comics.
And those are just all over the place.
Later, he got to see the real thing.
When I was let in, it was the first time I saw the sport model in the hangar, sitting down, and I was told they could have walked me in the front door, but they purposely wanted to walk me by it. I was told not to say anything and just keep my eyes forward and walk past the disc into the office area. And I did, and as we went by it, I just kind of stuck my hands on it just to run it alongside the thing, and that was about the smallest time. After that, I got to see it actually lift off the ground and operate.
But you also, in between that, you saw more than one.
Yeah. The hangars are all connected together, and there are large bay doors between each one. And there were 9 total that I saw, each one being different. Like they had the assortment pack.
Security at S4 was oppressive, LAZAR says, and his superiors used fear and intimidation almost as a brainwashing tool.
It did everything but physically hurt me.
Put a gun to your head?
Yeah.
And said what? Actually put a gun to your head?
Well, they did that even in the original security briefings. They had guards there with M16s, and guys slamming their finger into my chest, screaming in my ear, some people pointing weapons at me.
Well, that sounds like a job I would have taken. Well, you're gonna threaten me with guns and call me at 4 a.m. in the morning. Just make me rush to the strip to go fly to some other place. And it's just like you don't even really know what the hell's going on half the time. Everything's really spooky. Yet you're expected to use your big scientist brain to help out with the objective here. I don't know exactly what your motivation is other than just fear. In which case, I don't know why they didn't just kidnap you, but be that as it may, it sounds really pretty crazy. Mind control. They're trying to mind control him, spying on him.
Like I said, it's not a good place to work.
That fear factor would surface later. LAZAR agreed to undergo a polygraph exam as part of this report. Polygrapher Ron Slay asked about the technology LAZAR had seen.
Oh, good old not admissible in court polygraph examinations. Good old proves nothing, not scientifically sound at all. Not admissible in court polygraph. By the way, if you are ever, under any circumstances, asked to take a polygraph examination, don't do it. Actually, don't do it.
Did you knowingly lie when you said you had actually seen anti-gravity propulsion in operation?
No. The results of this exam were inconclusive. LAZAR appeared to be truthful on one test, deceitful on a second. Slay
good. Oh, that tells us everything.
Recommended that a second examiner be brought in. Polygrapher Terry Tavernetti runs a corporate security operation and is a former Los Angeles police officer. He put LAZAR through 4 tests and concluded there was no attempt to deceive.
And I left there thinking that I feel we do have some credibility to what the subject had to say. And that's when I went to some of my colleagues.
Tavernetti sent the test results to a third polygrapher who agreed the results appeared truthful. The charts were then sent to a 4th examiner who did not agree, suggesting LAZAR might be relating information he'd learned from someone else. The polygraphers conferred and decided they would not issue a final statement on truthfulness until more specific testing can be conducted. And
so it's just all bullshit, and just like polygraphs are. Generally.
And that's where it stands. Tavernetti believes that difficulty in determining LAZAR's truthfulness stems from the fear that was drilled into him.
I think we're talking about a subject here that is so far-reaching, and it is so emotional. And when you're dealing with emotions, this is polygraph, because in polygraph, you're looking at fear. The fear of getting caught telling a lie because something bad will happen to you if you do.
Oh, that explains it. So basically, all it does it sort of measures the symptoms of stress, but you can trick them the tests, and they're not not admissible in court because it's not really a hard science. But be that as it may, they're making excuses for the fact that he's kind of like, if you were a homicide detective, you probably would have looked at those results and said he's hiding something. But because you want to believe in aliens, well, I could see why he'd be nervous, because, I mean, would you extend that to the murder suspect who might also have a reason to be nervous because he's in a police station taking a polygraph? Probably not, right? But Bob LAZAR here, he just seems so truthful.
Well, I am telling the truth. I've tried to prove that. What's going on up there could be the most important event in history. You're talking about contact, physical contact and proof from another system, another planet, another intelligence. That's got to be the biggest event in history, period.
And it's real.
And it's real, and it's there. And I had an extremely small part in it, but I'm convinced that what I saw is absolute proof of that. There is no way we could have created those systems. There's no way we could have made the discs, the power supplies, anything to go with them.
LAZAR says he has no intention of going on any UFO lecture circuit. He's not looking to do any additional interviews. In fact, he wasn't too crazy about doing this one. He did it after certain unfavorable things started happening in his life, and he did it because he feels that whoever is running the show up at S4 is perpetrating a fraud on the American people and on the scientific community.
Oh, yes. And as we all know, he never did another interview again. Actually, no. He did lots of interviews, did speaking engagements, put out a tape. Here is part of that VHS tape that you could buy.
My job in this program was to be part of a back engineering team. Back engineering is the act of taking a finished product and tearing it apart to find out what makes it tick. The goal in this program was to see if the technology of the disc could be duplicated with Earth materials. When I went to work, I was flown from McCarran Airport in Las Vegas to Area 51, which is a highly secure government base on the Nevada test site. Area 51 is located about 125 miles north of Las Vegas near the Groom Mountains and the Groom Dry Lake bed. From Area 51, I was bused to an even more highly secure facility located about 15 miles south of Area 51 called S4. S4 is situated at the base of the Papoose Mountains by the Papoose Dry Lake bed. The airspace around S4 is restricted, and if any unwelcome aircraft strays into the outer sector, they radio the pilot and instruct him or her to leave. If that pilot continues and strays into the middle sector, jets will be scrambled to escort the intruding aircraft out. If for any reason whatsoever that aircraft penetrates into the inside sector before jets can be airborne, ground-to-air missiles will neutralize the intruder. The moral of this story is don't try and fly into S4.
Ho, ho, ho. You better not. You better not try to fly into S4. They'll shoot you the fuck down. So yeah, he did speaking engagements, sold the tape, and somehow wasn't. It's weird that they're willing to shoot down airplanes full of people, but this guy is doing media appearances and seems like he's all right. He's not. He's literally drawing diagrams of their secret installation and putting them out in the public, and nothing seems to be happening to him. That's a bit odd. It's a bit odd. Look at this is very professional looking pass that proves, of course, that he worked there. Even says MAJ at the side, majestic program that ended up being bullshit. But I like the majestic program. So anyway, most people get the story. There's a lot more to it. I'm not going to get into all the details. We'll be here all night. But the basic idea is he is this physicist that was recruited by the federal government to work in some secret capacity at a secret base to secretly backwards engineer alien technology for a short period of time, and then decided to go public with his story for a couple of reasons. One, he says, because the public had a right to know, but also because he was in danger, because he was being taken off the program, because they were listening to his phone calls and discovered that his wife was having an affair, and that was making him too unstable. They can't have that. They can't have people that have unstable personal lives working on this program. And they're very diligent, the federal government. They're very diligent. I mean, they're listening to his phone calls. That's how they found out about the affair. I mean, he said they had guards that stayed outside his house, in like unmarked vans, surveilling him around the clock. So they knew everything about this guy. And the second there was any kind of like weirdness, they were like, oh no. We can't have the only people we can allow to work on this super secret program are people who are basically like Boy Scouts, people that have nothing to hide. And you can look at Bob Lazar and see how he could maybe fit that bill. He looks kind of just like some nerdy kid, right? Nerdy kid, never did anything wrong, doesn't have like a criminal record or anything like that, and probably just, was really into science. He liked the science fair when he was a kid. Maybe he started a fire in his parents' shag carpet when he was a kid, trying to play around with chemistry or, whatever, right? But it never got into any real trouble. Maybe a little mischievous. The rocket car they talked about that he made. He made a rocket car when he was working as a physicist in Los Alamos. And so, he's kind of likes to tinker. And he likes to think outside the box. That's the kind of person that you'd want working on this alien propulsion system and trying to, give maybe a fresh look to this this system that, it's a tough nut to crack. It uses some kind of form of energy we don't even understand. So certainly you'd want one of the top minds on this, someone who is quirky and makes rocket cars and that sort of a thing. But he better have a nice, clean personal life, because if you don't, just like with working for the FBI, if you've got debts or drug addictions or gambling addictions or any of these sorts of things, then they can't trust you. Especially with the secret clearances that he's talking about. He said that his secret clearance was something like 38 levels above secret Q clearance, which I'm pretty sure is a made-up clearance. But yeah, it's like super duper times 38 top secret. So in order to have that level of clearance, you got to be squeaky clean. And obviously, to work on a project like this, you'd have to be pretty qualified. You'd want the best minds on this. So let's take a little look. Let's take a little look into the background of Bob Lazar, shall we? See if this is the kind of guy you think the federal government would want working on their top secret UFO propulsion program at Area 51. So good old Bob. Yeah, look at it. He looks like very innocent. Very innocent. He was born in 1959 to Robert and Coral. Robert and the Corals were Robert and someone else, Lazar. I forgot. I didn't write it down. In Coral Gables, Florida. And in August of 1976, he graduated from W. Tresper Clark High School in Westbury, Long Island, New York. And you're probably thinking to yourself, he must have been the top of his class, right? Boy genius. No. Actually, he graduated in the bottom third. The bottom third. And you can say, well, that actually happens a lot with geniuses. And I agree. Often geniuses are not very compatible with a education system that's designed for normies. And so they get bored and they zone out and they don't bother doing the work because it's mindless to them. Okay. Well, I guess that's entirely possible. He then attended Pierce Junior College in Los Angeles in 1976 for a period of time. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, hold on. It's not really a prestigious school. This guy got into Caltech and MIT. He said he had master's degrees from both Caltech, which obviously is in California, and MIT, which is across the country. So it's a little odd that he was getting those simultaneously if you look at given the timeline. Because this is 1976. He's just starting college. And by 1982, just 6 years later, he's already a physicist at Los Alamos. But we'll get into that in a second. In 1980, July 27th to be precise, he marries Carol Nadine Asher in Woodland Hills, California. Oddly, the marriage certificate has an alias for her. It lists her as Carol Nadine Strong. The marriage application lists Bob Lazar's job as an electronics engineer and his education level at 12th grade. So somehow in 1980, his highest level of education is high school. But in just 2 years, he's a physicist at Los Alamos. Very interesting. Very interesting. Almost as interesting as some of the other things about his wife. See, Carol Nadine Strong, as she is known on her marriage certificate, and nowhere else. It turns out she had some odd associations and a bit of a checkered past. She was affiliated with the Hells Angels. And involved in a murder case with the Hells Angels in 1975. So this would just be 5 years prior to getting married to Bob Lazar. She was involved with a murder case. Here's part of the rundown of that. On June 12, 1974, Carol Nadine Esslinger, as she was known then, and two associates, Gary Burkett, a member of the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels, and his wife Victoria, entered the home of Dennis Pissarro. Mr. Pissarro and Mrs. Burkett had allegedly gotten into a violent argument weeks prior. According to testimony presented in court, the three individuals, so Bob Lazar's wife, some Hells Angel guy, and the Hells Angel guy's wife, armed with pistols, entered the house. Carol held a guest of Pissarro's Eugene Day at gunpoint. So this is Bob Lazar's wife, future wife, I guess, holds a man at gunpoint in an adjacent room while the other two stabbed and shot Mr. Pissarro to death. Day heard the sound of gunfire and saw the blood splatter. After Pissarro had been killed, the attackers handcuffed Day to a shelf bracket and handed him a syringe, which he was told contained a solution that would incapacitate him. The attackers ordered Day to inject himself with the solution so they could escape. Day, however, managed to inject only a small amount, squirting the rest of the solution on the floor. The arm that was injected later required surgery to repair damage the caustic solution had caused. So they were going to have him... He was basically ordered him to inject himself with like Drano or something. This is Bob Lazar's first wife. We're going to get into that in a second too. At some point, Day was able to throw a wall plaque at Carol, Bob Lazar's wife, and escape to a neighbor's house where he contacted authorities. She was later arrested. On the evening of June 13, 1974, the day after Pissarro's murder, a routine tow truck call led to Carol's second arrest. Carol and a 15-year-old boy had become stuck in a riverbed mud in a car and required a tow truck to pull them out. A tow truck arrived and the car was towed to a nearby shop for repairs. However, when the tow truck driver arrived at the shop, Carol and the boy had fallen asleep in the truck. Suspecting that something was amiss, the truck driver called the police. Upon their arrival, the police officers awakened Carol and the boy and conducted a search of the car. During the search, they discovered amphetamine powder and tablets, as well as stolen goods. Both were promptly arrested and charged with possession of dangerous drugs and possession of property with altered serial numbers. She was then sentenced in the murder case. On July 18, 1974, Carol was arrested for involvement in Pissarro's death and was charged with second-degree murder, conspiracy, and false imprisonment. After an initial not guilty plea, she eventually pled guilty to a second-degree murder charge. On March 12, 1975, Carol was sentenced to prison at Frontera, a women's correctional institution located in Chino, California. So, Bob Lazar marries a woman 12 years his senior who has ties to the Hells Angels, is involved with selling drugs in the moving of stolen property, She had 6 kids. 6 kids between 1959 and 1968 that she gave up for adoption that, according to Bob Lazar, he knew nothing about. Until one of them, after her death, which we're going to get into in a second, contacted him looking for her. And he replied to her, I didn't know she had any kids, but she had 6 kids. So with this woman here, Bob Lazar moves to Los Alamos in 1982. And they open a photo processing company, which we'll get into in a second. But what you might hear bandied about all the time is the fact that in 1982, the evidence that he worked at Los Alamos Laboratory, or at least part of the evidence, is this article. This article that was reprinted. I found this in a couple different places. This is the Alamogordo, it's another New Mexico paper, Alamogordo Daily News, where it talks about his jet car. This is in the Santa Fe, New Mexican, 1982. Jet isn't an idle boast on this car. And this is in the Arizona Republic, I believe. So it did get picked up. The story of his rocket car got picked up in several newspapers around the country, mostly in the Southwest. And in the story, he states that he is a physicist yet at Los Alamos Labs. And Joe Rogan, George Knapp, and super credible Jeremy Corbell bring this up as evidence that proves that he was a physicist at Los Alamos Labs.
The Los Alamos Lab story was him. He put a jet engine on a Honda.
Right.
And it was a functional jet car that he built himself. So he was a legitimate propulsion expert. And again, like a super science nerd. Like where he got his education is what's weird, right?
I finally got an interview with the guy that wrote that article 2 weeks ago. So the guy, Terry English, right. Finally, after all this time, he called me back 3 years late. You know what I mean? We'd love to put him in the movie. And I said, look, here's the point. You said Bob Lazar was a physicist at Los Alamos. So how did you base that? You're writing a paper. And he goes, yeah, and it got picked up by AP News. He goes, if I had misrepresented that he was a physicist at Los Alamos, I would have been blackballed by everybody at Los Alamos. They take that very seriously.
I see. If he had incorrectly identified Bob Lazar as a physicist at Los Alamos Labs, and that Los Alamos Labs had read that he had misrepresented someone as being a physicist there that wasn't a physicist there, then Los Alamos Labs would have blackballed him and he never would have been able to report on Los Alamos Labs ever again. And that would be a big deal because Los Alamos Labs was, it was big. It was one of the biggest employers in Los Alamos. Los Alamos is not, especially back then, was not a very big town. In fact, many people that lived in Albuquerque, even when I lived in Albuquerque, there were people that they worked at the lab. They would just say the lab, and that's what it meant. People knew what that meant. There was also Sandia Labs, which is something else, but related, right? So, this was like a big deal, right? So clearly the guy who wrote this article, Terry English, would have taken that very seriously and would have made sure that he had checked and made sure that he was actually a physicist before printing this paper about the guy with the rocket. Oh, no. So someone actually contacted Terry England after watching this interaction on Joe Rogan. And here's the exchange. Did you ever follow up and actually verify his claim that he was a physicist, or did you just take that at face value? Terry England. I kind of took it at face value. I talked to a lot of guys up there at Los Alamos who were nuclear physicists, and I pretty much accepted what they said. Did you speak to some people to ask if he was a physicist? No. Maybe I should have, but I had no reason to doubt him at the time. In Jeremy Corbell's recent documentary, he said that he talked to you, and you told him that you had confirmed he was a physicist. I don't remember saying that. It's possible, but I don't remember saying that because I don't remember doing it. He said that you told him if you hadn't have looked into it, that you would have been blackballed in the community. He said that? Yeah. I don't think so. So Terry England, who's probably very old at this point, seems very confused about this and does not support this idea that he had confirmed with Jeremy Corbell. Oh, obviously I had to check that out. Because again, why would he? It's just some stupid story about a guy with a rocket car in a town where half the town works for the lab. And if he says he's a physicist and he's got a fucking rocket car, you're like, all right, I guess he's, checks out. And look, I worked in local news, actually in this region. And I would tell you that the idea that you would go and call up and try to verify anyone's employment that you interviewed over a story like this would be absurd. No one would ever fucking do that. This isn't like fucking some expose in Time magazine or something like that. It's local news. It's a fluff piece about a fucking rocket car. You're not trying to chase down. I bet he also didn't verify like his name or his address or anything else. He was just like, oh, what's your name? Oh, what do you do? Oh, you're a physicist? Okay, cool. And then that's it. Submit it to the editor, get it in time for print. So, yeah, bullshit. The guy did not verify it. He just printed it. And it's also a little bit weird because if he's a physicist, why did he also have a 1-hour photo business? See, he and his wife, when they moved to Los Alamos, they opened a 1-hour photo thing back before digital cameras, when you had to get film developed to get your pictures back. There was a lot of money in these little kiosk-y type shacks where you would drop off your roll of film, and in 1 hour you could come back and get your photos back. And that was really cool. That was high tech. And Bob Lazar, along with his Hell's Angel murderer wife Carol, had opened up a photo place when they moved out to Los Alamos. And I don't know, it kind of feels like if you were busy working at the lab all the time as a physicist, you wouldn't have time for that kind of a thing. But I don't know. Maybe he did. So we do know that he opened up a lab. In fact, they opened up 2 different locations by at least 1983. He and his wife had a second location. That's the second location there. And then we get to another weird thing. By 1984, again, he's a physicist at Los Alamos who runs a photo lab. He starts telling people that he wants them to invest in his brothel. He wants them to invest in his brothel in Nevada called the Honeysuckle Ranch. He goes to his, wife Carol's family, who is involved with the Hells Angels, and says that he wants to, have a interest in a brothel and ask for some money. The Hells Angels were, in fact, involved to some degree with some of the legal brothels in Nevada. Unfortunately, aside from this T-shirt existing, there is no record anywhere of a legal brothel, at least, called Honeysuckle Ranch. There's no record of, because you had to get licensed to do that sort of a thing. If you wanted to have a legal whorehouse in Nevada, there was a process, just like if you wanted a casino. And there is no record whatsoever of this honeysuckle ranch existing. There is, in fact, the foremost expert on legal brothels in Nevada, Jan McKell Collins, who's written several books about the brothels in Nevada and the history of it, said that she had never heard of a honeysuckle ranch. And the family members that have been talked to about Bob Lazar, who had ties to the Hells Angels, do remember him trying to get money from them to invest in a brothel, but they were trying to do it smart. They were the Hells Angels. They weren't just, some dipshit criminals. They were trying to do what the mafia would do and have at least the appearance of doing things legally. And so they had invested in legal brothels and told him that if you're going to do this, you have to do it by the book. You have to do it, get your license, and go through that whole process. Otherwise, you're going to get fucking arrested. And they said that at that point, he stopped talking to them about it. And they assumed that what he did do was he started an illegal prostitution ring, which we'll get into in a moment. So this guy who's a physicist at Los Alamos, working on, even the stuff that's not involving aliens at Los Alamos, that's you have to have a secret clearance. It's top secret type shit. It's usually tied to the military in some way. It's stuff that you don't talk about. It's not. I mean, it's if nothing else, it's IP that you don't want getting out to espionage agents from other countries or what have you. So it's a very serious job, and yet he's working as a physicist while simultaneously running a photo booth company and with 2 locations, and also a prostitution ring in Nevada, which I'll get to in a moment. Now, you might say, well, what about this thing about him being in the telephone directory? The telephone directory. Well, you see, what they don't tell you about in the telephone directory is in the telephone directory, next to his name, is an indication that he works for a contractor, not for the actual lab itself, but a contractor, a subcontractor. This is very common in federal government jobs. What they'll do is, especially for jobs that are, because it's so hard to hire and fire federal employees because of all the fucking benefits and shit that they get, the federal government often just gets temp workers to do a lot of their work. And that way you can just have them do one contract, for a project, then fire them. Now, as I said, this was a big employer in Los Alamos. Lots of people did contract work for Los Alamos Labs. And the kind of contract work that you would do is stuff like, for example, let's say you were a physicist and you needed to install some big equipment in your lab in order to conduct some experiment. Well, you're not going to be the one that's rolling around on the ground wiring up the place. You hire a contractor to come in there and install these machines, or the satellite dish or the phone line or whatever it is. And there are people that do remember Bob Lazar, someone who is just trying to make a buck and does have at least some technical knowledge. He had worked for as a technician in California, repairing circuit boards in an assembly line at Fairchild. So he did have, he could solder and rewire stuff, and, he had some technical knowledge. And they do remember him working there as a technician, as a temp technician. In fact, his wife, the murdery one. Also, some people remember her doing some temp work there because, like I said, a lot of people did. You could go to the temp agency, you get signed up. Anyone that's ever worked for a temp agency, you know the drill. You get in there, you put your resume in, you get in a database. The temp agency gets called looking for people to fill certain positions. You get a phone call. Maybe you accept it, maybe you don't. And that's the kind of relationship, it appears, Bob Lazar actually had with Los Alamos Labs. That while he was running his photo company and quite possibly a prostitution ring in Nevada, which again, we'll get to in a moment. He was also doing temp work over at Los Alamos Labs, doing technician work. In fact, the people that remember him working there, some of them also remember why he got fired. Turns out that if you work at the lab, there were telephones there that allow you to make free long distance calls. This is back in the 80s when long distance calls were really expensive. This isn't like today where you can just get your phone and dial, if you're in California, you can dial a number in New York and it doesn't cost anything. It's just like a phone call like anything else. No, back then it was like $3 a minute maybe, depending on where you were calling. I mean, it was really expensive to make long distance phone calls. And apparently there was problems with people abusing the fact that there was free long distance at the lab. And according to some, Bob LAZAR was one of the people that they had a problem with making long distance calls from the lab, and he was let go as a result. I tried to find Honeysuckle Ranch anywhere in the newspaper record or any archive. It did not exist as far as I can tell. But what did exist, as I said before, was his photo lab business, which also is remember that, I don't know if they still are around. There used to be like Kinko's, and then it was FedEx Kinko's, and it was like, there's mailbox, etc., stuff like that. They were trying to do something like that, where it was like a UPS store / we develop your pictures and this kind of garbage. Well, you see, what happened in 1986, I might have gotten a little ahead of myself here. Bob LAZAR, in 1986, so 4 years after that article about him being a physicist with the rocket car at Los Alamos Labs, he's still running this photo company. And while still married to the Hell's Angel lady, in April of 1986, he gets married to Tracy Merck. Tracy Merck, who is being investigated for fraud. So while married to the murderer lady, he gets married to another woman who's being investigated for fraud because she worked at a bank and was trying to embezzle money out of the accounts of a rich guy that had an account at the bank. And you might think to yourself, well, that's pretty crazy. Oh, it is pretty crazy. In fact, even John Lear, because when they got married, while he's still married to the murderer lady, he marries this other lady. They use a fake name. John Lear even admits that, I think there was some kind of like legal thing. That's why they used a fake name when they got married.
My memory isn't all that great, but it seems to me he changed the name because she was in serious trouble over something, and I don't remember what it was. Could have been a bank robbery. It could have been missing funds. It could have been, I don't know what it was. But I think that's why he changed her name.
Yeah. And so you might be thinking to yourself, well, what about his other wife? So he got married to this fraud lady with a fake name while still married. Oh, no problem, because 2 days after getting married to the fraud lady, his murder wife committed suicide. That's right. 2 days after he marries this other girl, his other wife commits suicide. So this is April 21st, 1986. Her death occurred in Las Vegas, Nevada. because at this point, likely due to the prostitution business that they were trying to run out of Las Vegas, while they were kind of going half and half between Los Alamos and Las Vegas at this point. And while in Las Vegas, his murder wife, according to official records, killed herself. So the death certificate and the coroner's report ruled it a suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning from inhaling motor vehicle exhaust fumes in a vehicle in the garage of their home at 1933 and Greta. Bob Lazar reportedly discovered her body on the morning of April 21st after returning from an out-of-town car racing trip, most likely with his other wife. He stated the vehicle was still running when he arrived, and he turned it off before contacting authorities. A suicide note was found in the house, reportedly saying something along the lines of, "I did it myself," expressing that she was tired of things, wanted no big funeral, no flowers, and cremation. It was signed Carol Lazar. Other items noted in the garage included an unused gun on the driver's side seat, a small television set facing her. No autopsy was performed, but the coroner concluded carbon monoxide asphyxiation based on blood tests and other observations. The last known contact of her or from her was by phone, when Bob talked to her on the phone on the afternoon of April 19th, a couple days prior. A couple days prior, also the day he was getting married to another woman. So he marries this other woman, and then his other wife kills herself. He then immediately closes up shop in Los Alamos. He ditches all of his businesses. In fact, this is a news report talking about how there are just unopened packages that people are waiting for, they can't get to because they're just like in the building. And he just left town. So he just abandoned his businesses, his photo businesses, and that was the other thing. People couldn't get their photos. They were all pissed off. So there was just all this, he just locked the doors and left overnight. Like within days of all this other shit happening, within days of him marrying the fraud lady and his other wife killing herself, he ditches all of his ties to Los Alamos and moves to Las Vegas. You know. So anyway, remember earlier when Bob Lazar was saying like how strict they were with the secret clearances, you know, like how like, oh, his well, I guess this is the second wife now, right? This is the fraud lady with a fake name. She was having an affair, and so that's why they decided to fire him, because they found out about the affair by listening to his phone calls. Somehow they didn't know about the rest of his past, where he was married to a Hell's Angel murderer who killed herself 2 days after he married this girl that I guess later had the affair. The fact that he was operating a prostitution ring in Las Vegas, that charge doesn't hit yet. Okay, he hasn't. That is most likely happening. We don't have, obviously, because it was illegal activity. We don't know exactly when that activity started, but at some point he does start an illegal prostitution ring that he is charged with later. But he's likely already running this with his Hell's Angel wife that kills herself. But he gets a secret clearance. He obviously did not have any degree from MIT or any degree from Caltech. We'll get into a little more of the details of that in a moment. He had, according to himself, sworn documents that he signed. He had a 12th grade education. Nothing wrong with that, unless, of course, you want to work for Los Alamos. Then you definitely need to have your degree. The work that he did do at Los Alamos was in the capacity of a temp worker, running cables and doing technical work that literally anyone could do. And that's why he was in the phone directory, and that's why the temp agency name is next to his name on the phone directory. He likely lied to the reporter who wrote the story about him being a physicist. It wouldn't even make sense, because in interviews he said that he worked as a technician at Los Alamos for a couple of years and then became a physicist. Well, the only thing wrong with that is that article was written in 1982, the year he moved to Los Alamos. So there's no possible way that both of those things could be true. He couldn't have worked as a technician at Los Alamos for a couple of years and then become a physicist, but also be a physicist the year that he showed up. So either he lied to the reporter saying that he was a physicist, or he lied about working for 2 years as a technician before becoming a physicist, which wouldn't make any sense why he would lie about that. So now let's take a look at some other red flags.
Mr. LAZAR, can you list your credentials?
As far as what?
Your schooling, your degrees?
I have 2 master's degrees. One's in physics, one's in electronics. I wrote my thesis on MHD, which is magnetohydrodynamics. I worked at Los Alamos for a few years as a technician, and then as a physicist in the polarized proton section, essentially dealing with the accelerator there. I was hired at S4 as a senior staff physicist to work on gravitational propulsion systems and whatnot associated with those crafts.
What school did you go to?
I'd rather not say. The reason being is currently I'm working with them under contract, and I don't want to. I'm having enough trouble with this as it is.
Well, that's weird, because that never comes up again. This, I'm working under contract, and that's why I can't tell you the schools I went to. Also, he repeats the lie about working as a technician for a couple of years before becoming a physicist, something that doesn't add up given the timeline. And doesn't want to bring up where he went to school, but claims that he's got these 2 master's degrees from the 2 most prestigious, well, he'll say later, the 2 most prestigious schools. Again, this is where he says in 1982 that he just moved there from California and is already a physicist. So that doesn't add up at all. Now, the other thing that does, well, let's get some more of this here. Here again, in one of these lecture circuits that he definitely never participated in, but here he is doing one. In 1991, he is asked about his educational credentials yet again. And this time, someone asked for specifics.
You say your records at Caltech and MIT have somehow disappeared.
And Los Alamos and probably everywhere else.
Is there any way you could reconstruct your coursework and your professors?
Oh, sure. I've got people that that I went to school with, and George Knapp has spoken to some of them, and he even flew with me up to Los Alamos and spoke to my colleagues there, and it's just.
Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT and Caltech?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and Hosefield was another.
Hosefield?
Hosefield. HOHSFIELD or something along those lines.
They remember you?
Oh yeah, Hosefield I know well.
These were at MIT or Caltech?
Hosefield was at MIT. Duxler was at Caltech.
Uh-oh. He said he had a Professor Duxler at Caltech and a Professor Hosefield at MIT. Only problem with that is there was never a Professor Hosefield at MIT, but there was a Mr. Hosefield at his high school. So there's that. As far as the Professor Duxler at Caltech, there was no Professor Duxler ever at Caltech. However, there was a Professor Duxler at Pierce, the junior college that he went to for probably about a year. So he did pick real names of real people that existed when kind of in the crosshairs there in this interview. Finally asked like a basic question about his credentials. And, but, you know, turns out bullshit. Complete bullshit. Now, here's the other problem. He said that he got his undergraduate degree at Pacifica University. Well, the problem is there is no Pacifica University. Well, there kind of was. There was a degree mill called Pacifica University. Now, what a degree mill is, it's you would send this is especially back before the internet existed. If you wanted a fake degree to get you a job somewhere, or just to put, I guess, a degree on the wall or something like that, you would pay, $1,000 or whatever to some fake school who would send you a diploma, and you could then go to your job interview and say, here's my diploma for Pacifica University. And most people, especially in a high trust society, weren't going to try to track down some Pacifica University and verify that you worked there. You had a legitimate looking diploma. That was good enough for them. And so he claimed that he had received his bachelor's degree from Pacifica University. Unfortunately, like I said, Pacifica University never existed outside this degree mill that was busted by the feds. The same year he says he graduated from Pacifica University. So his undergraduate degree also made up. Now, at this point, because the internet does exist, even people like George Knapp, who are all in on Bob Lazar because this is what made his career. This is part of his legacy. He has to make sure that Bob Lazar's story lasts at least as long as he does, or else the jig is up. Or else his whole life is a lie. Or at least his whole life post 1989 is a lie. But at this point, because of the internet, even he has to admit that Bob Lazar has a made-up educational background.
Stan has gone to MIT and Caltech and looked for Bob Lazar's educational credentials, and he found them lacking. And I applaud him for that. But because that part of Bob's story is weak, Stan has written the whole thing off, which is what a lot of people have done. I don't know how to I've tried to remind Stan about this in person, and I've said it in public a few times, but the important thing is with Lazar is that the information about his educational background was in the very first story that we aired. The very first report that identified him, we said we could not verify his background. And I will confide to you this. I don't believe he ever went to those schools. I don't believe Bob Lazar could get a degree from Caltech or MIT for a very simple reason. At American universities, when you get a degree, an undergraduate degree, you have to take all kinds of core courses in subjects that you may not be interested in. Literature. I cannot possibly imagine, and Anna, you know Bob, I can't imagine Bob Lazar sitting through a class in American Lit or reading poetry or something like that. He'd never stand for it. There is no way in hell that he sat through that stuff to get a degree. So what do we do? What do we do with that? Do we throw out the story? Here's how I rationalize it, is Bob would not be the first person to lie about his educational credentials in order to get a good job.
a good job where they know everything about you, they're spying on you, and they don't realize that your educational background is completely made up. Because you went to a undergraduate school that didn't exist, and then you just, I mean, you didn't even have like fake credentials unless you forged some for the other two schools, the two most prestigious schools in the country. You would think they would want to check that out. So he rationalizes it, as he puts it, because he doesn't want to let go of the whole story. And that's a common thing with people who get caught up living a lie, is they find something that pretty much disproves the lie that they believe in. And they say, but I really like this lie. I really like this lie. I want so much to believe in this lie. I'm just going to say, whatever. Who cares? This should be enough for you to say that this guy's not an honest guy. And you're supposed to believe the wild shit coming out of his mouth when you can't even believe just the normal shit coming out of his mouth. In fact, that doesn't even occur to these people. It doesn't occur to the people that you're given a reason to just not trust the guy on a normal basis, let alone the wild shit that he's saying. In fact, it doesn't occur to them that maybe he should be under more scrutiny. If he's saying that he's working with alien aircraft that the government has at a secret base, and that he's a physicist that worked at this installation, and then you find out there's no fucking possible way he was a physicist ever, that should be a big deal. But it's not, because he had a rocket car. And he worked as a temp at Los Alamos while running a prostitution ring in Las Vegas and some photo labs with his Hells Angels wife. Oh boy. So, yeah, not only that, that's, his obviously that it just doesn't add up at all. And obviously the professor thing, that's big enough, right? He made up two professors that, he had a connection to people with those names, just not in that, not working at any kind of school in that capacity. But not only that, there's just so many artifacts that get left behind when you go to a school like that. If you are a graduate student at these prestigious schools, you have an office. You're just not like some faceless, NPC. You have an office. I mean, you work there in an official capacity. You work there around the clock. You contribute to papers that get published. If you're working on a postdoc at MIT, people know who you are. And yet no one knows who this guy is. No one remembers talking to him, seeing him, going to school with him. I guess the men in black used their little flashy flash machine thing and wiped out their memory of him, which sadly is exactly what they say. And then in terms of the Pacific University thing, now that's open and shut. We already know that that's a diploma mill, and that he probably went to school for like 1 year at a junior college after graduating bottom third of his class in high school. Now, look, I'm not a academic by any means. In fact, when I worked in technical positions, I often found the people with the degrees were some of the stupidest people I ever worked with. And this isn't about whether or not he would be smart enough to do the physicist type things, but I also know how the government works. I know how this environment is in terms of who they hire. And if you don't have a degree, you're the contractor. I was that contractor that didn't have the degree, that was doing all the work for the people that had the degree. I was literally in the position that he was in at Los Alamos. So then people will say, well, his story never changed. His story about like the UFOs and stuff, they never changed. We can't George Knapp just said, we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater just because it's proof. Just because he's lying about his educational background and probably a lot of other things, doesn't mean that he's lying about the actual UFOs, right? Like the same story that he told us in 1989 is the same story he tells on Joe Rogan. Or is it? Or is it? Here he is in 2018.
And another thought I had, which has been widely discussed, is that many of these alien beings, or at least particularly the smaller gray alien, a lot of people seem to believe that these are droids of some sort. They are not flesh and blood, and they are more like probes that are sent out. They fly these things, so there is no need for eating or drinking or using the bathroom or anything like that. Have you heard anything similar, or have you at least heard of this theory? And that's to you or Jeremy.
I haven't heard of that theory, but I do have to say, I did see a briefing. Now, there are several other projects going on at the same time, and what we do have is each group gets a 2 or 3 page briefing of what the other groups are doing. And they're trying to keep everything compartmentalized, but what they want to do is at least let you have a little knowledge of what's going on in the other groups in case there's a connection. So you can complete your research.
Right.
But so in my briefing, it did have to do with as far as the actual beings that were in the craft. They had a photograph of them where their a chest was cut and peeled back, and they had made notes of.
Wow.
It was only one central organ. It's as if all the organs had grown together into one mass, and it had multiple functions. And that was like the extent of my knowledge of it.
Oh my God. Would you look at that? So in 2018, he says, oh yeah, these aliens, I got briefed on it because as much as they compartmentalize us and I wasn't involved with the alien autopsy stuff, I got a memo. And in the memo, it said these aliens don't have separate organs. They just have one big super organ that does everything. That's okay. As unlikely as that sounds, all right, I guess. So they have like the super organ that does all the functions of the body. And very interesting, I guess. He says this in 2018. Problem is, that's not his story all the time. Back in the 90s, he said, while speaking to the author of Alien Contact, Timothy Good, quote, LAZAR learned that the United States had acquired a number of extraterrestrial spacecraft, although in what circumstances was not explained. He also claims to have seen autopsy reports as well as black and white photos of alien bodies. The typical grays, weighing 25 to 50 pounds with large hairless heads, and photos of various organs, some cross-sectioned, spread on a table, with weights and densities listed. I was completely shocked, he told George Knapp. I couldn't believe it, but I was fascinated. So here's one aspect of his story that certainly did change over a course of about 30 years. Back in the 90s, he's saying, oh, there's all these different organs and they have the different densities and stuff. And then he's like, in 2018, I think it was 2018, he's like, oh, just one big super organ. Oh, okay. Let's see what else how else he describes what he saw while working with this alien technology.
The lower level is where the 3 gravity amplifiers and amplifier guides are located. These are the things used to amplify and focus the gravity A wave that we learned about in our science lessons.
Okay, so there's 3 different gravity amplifiers, as he calls them.
I just wanted to ask you, do we give something in exchange for all this information they're giving us?
I really don't know.
You know that?
I don't know what went on behind the scenes as far as how we got the technology.
Oh, oops, I think I put a clip in the wrong place. Where is this at? I think I'm about to mess this clip up. There's so much to go through on this. Oh, there was so much digging I had to do. Anyway, we'll get back to that. That three thing. He's explaining that's how the craft works. Anyway, we'll get back to that. I forget what the point of that one was. Maybe I'll remember here. Oh, this is part of this. That's all right. So I have it in the wrong place. So he talks about the different modes in which this gravity drive works. He talks about that in different interviews. He describes this alien gravity drive with the 3 different gravity accelerators and how they work in the different modes. And one of the modes that he talks about is called, what was it? Let me just find, I want to make sure I get it right. It's like Omega mode or something like that. Hold on a second. Where is it at? Here we are. Here we go. How many gravity amplifiers are used in Omicron configuration? He called it Omicron configuration. So in 1989, he said that in Omicron configuration, all 3 of the gravity accelerators would be in use. He said in 1989, the low speed mode, and I really wish I could remember what they call these, but I can't, as I can't remember the frequency. This is another thing he does all the time, by the way. In all of his interviews, he acts like he's constantly suffering from some kind of weird brain fog that makes him really vague about everything. And just gives him enough wiggle room to where if he ever fucks something up, he can always be like, "Oh, well, that was the brain fog." In fact, I remember before he went on to Joe Rogan, he actually canceled initially because he said, "Oh, I've got these migraines and I just can't. I won't be able to do it because of the brain fog." And all throughout the interview, he was talking about the brain fog because I've had these headaches, and so he's been saying this since 1989. So that if he ever does fuck up a detail, he can always be like, "Oh, it was the brain fog thing that I've had for like fucking 30 years." So anyway, and the other good thing about this sort of a lie is no one understands alien physics that you're making up as you go along. And so if you fuck up a specific detail about some science fiction-y warp drive bullshit, no one's going to remember because it's all mumbo jumbo in the first place. So if you say that in this case that there's 3 gravity accelerators working in Omicron mode, and then a couple years later you say something else, who's going to remember that fucking shit? And so, which is exactly the case. So in 1989, he says that there was 3. In 1994, he says that there were, let's see here. There was 1 amplifier. The craft operated in 2 modes, Omicron and Delta, which indicated how many gravity amplifiers were in use. In the Omicron configuration, only 1 amplifier was used. And this is an Omni magazine. The other 2 were swung out of the way and tucked inside the disc. In Omicron mode, the crafts can essentially rise and hover, but do little else, which is also different behavior than what he described. And then in 2019, he says 1 again. But then also in 2019, in his movie, he says 2. Let me bring that up. That's one of the clips that was rendering that I forgot to add, but I have it here. Dun, 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 dun. Well, that's weird. Why is it not? Oh, here we go. Okay. At the 1 hour and 9-minute mark. What's up, Churro? You want to go outside? I think he wants to go outside. So this is the same year. Oh, by the way, doesn't want to make any money, but this is his autobiography that he made a bunch of money on. and the movie that he's in.
Only led to believe that. The center antenna is really an extension of the reactor in the center, and that's a waveguide, which allows the emission of the gravity wave, which forms kind of a heart shape over the whole craft. That's how it creates its distortion. These gravity emitters can be swung all the way up to 180 degrees, and this allows the craft to essentially stand on two of them and hover, while this one swings up and creates a distortion.
Hang on a second. Let me back this up. Or not back it up, move it forward. I know this is like the boring lame part. It's not the cool hookers and Hell's Angels shit, but here it is.
And on two of them and hover, while this one swings up and creates a distortion in front of it, allowing the craft to slide forward. So that's how their low power mode, Omicron configuration operate. The Delta configuration uses all three, and
so that's literally the opposite of what he said in the other interview, if you were paying attention there. So he's inconsistent with how the imaginary Omicron gravity accelerator drive works. He's also inconsistent about how the actual amplifiers are always powered on. In 1990, in a book called UFOs and Alien Presence, when he was interviewed, he said, "I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the amplifiers always run at 100%. They're always outputting a maximum gravity wave. And that wave is a phase shifted from 0 to 180 degrees. That's essentially the attraction and the repulsion, and it's normally at null setting somewhere in between. It's a very straightforward system. It looks more like a coal-fired engine than anything very high-tech. People claim that this technology is tens of thousands of years ahead of us. I think, and the reality is, this technology is probably around 100 or 200 years ahead of us." So he says, "Oh yeah, this is they're always on full blast, always on full blast." But then in the LAZAR tape that he released in the 90s, again, of course, doesn't want to profit on it, doesn't do interviews. He explains it differently.
The gravity amplifiers of the disk can be focused independently, and they are pulsed and do not stay on continuously.
Oh, so like they don't stay, the opposite of what you said. They don't stay on at full blast. Sometimes you pulse them. Okay. So he's inconsistent about the details of the made-up alien technology is what I'm getting at. This is another inconsistency where he talks about how this is all made-up physics stuff. I'm just including it to show you that he's been inconsistent about all the details. When asked if the Element 115 required a nuclear bombardment in order to activate or for it to work. This is the question here. Do you have to use some nuclear bombardment to produce the gravitational wave? And then Bob Lazar says, no, it may enhance it or amplify it to some degree or stimulate it to produce more, but just a single piece of 115 lying on the table has a sufficient enough gravitational wave to deflect a laser fired over it. And then when he's discussing it in 1990, he says the opposite. The fuel element is even more bizarre. Lazar explained in another interview, on the periodic chart it would be 115. The highest atomic listed is 106. It's always been theorized that up to around element 113 to 114, they become stable again. This is a stable element. This is a stable element, and there are certain magical combinations of photons and neutrons which make up the elements. And this is apparently what is being used on bombardment with protons. It kicks it up to element 116 and then releases antimatter. So he's basically his made up physics stuff about how it works has changed from one interview to the next. But again, most people are, I mean, some of you guys are probably tuning out with this shit, which is why we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. So he's full of fucking shit. He's full of fucking shit on the details about how it works. Then when it comes to where did the crafts actually come from? Where did they come from? Did we shoot them down? You know, what condition were they in? I think this is this part. Let me see here. Or this is something else. We'll find out in a second.
One of them looked like it was hit with some sort of projectile. It had a large hole in the bottom and a large hole in the top with the metal bent out, like some sort of, you know, large caliber 4 or 5 inch projectile had gone through it.
All right, so in the original interview in 1989 with George Knapp, he says one of the UFOs looks like it was shot down. There was a big hole in it, like a big projectile had gone through it. Okay. What about in this interview a year later?
It seems kind of strange to me that if these the aliens that have these UFOs obviously are thousands of years in advance in technology, it seems.
Sure.
How in the world would it seem that the government would come into possession of these UFOs if, in fact, the UFO aliens didn't actually want them to have them?
All right, Bill, thank you for the call. He'll answer off the air.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know. The thing is that they look in very good condition. It doesn't look like they were crashed, that they were retrieved somewhere. It really looks like they were given. So I don't know. That might be the case.
Have you ever given any thought to the fact that maybe they were invited here and they?
Okay, so in the course of a year, we go from one of them looks like it was shot down. It's got a big gaping hole in it. To no, they're all in good condition. They don't look like they were crashed or recovered in any way. They look like they were given to us by the aliens. Okay. Well, what about this interview? In this interview, he says, the disc, which LAZAR called the sports model, owing to its slick form, was only one of 9 spacecraft, which were kept at S4. He found out when all the hangar doors were open on certain occasion that they are there. Let me blow this up so I can read it better. So my old eyes can read this better. All right. There they stood, all of them. The hangars were all interconnected, and each one harbored such disk. There were 9 in all, and each one was different. 3 had been taken apart for investigation. 1 was damaged, so now we had a damaged one again. 1 had crashed only in August of 1981. So now we got a damaged one and a crashed one that had crashed in 1981. And the rest were intact. So now there's 2 damaged ones in this interview. Okay. What about this?
Whatever happened at Roswell, there's no dispute about the many official documents which indicate the American government knows more than it's letting on about UFOs. How did these craft get into the hands of the U.S. government?
I really have no idea how the craft got there. I don't believe there were crashes because the craft weren't damaged. And that's about all that I can say.
Oh, no, they're not damaged again. So we went from 1 damaged to 0 to 2, now back to 0 damaged again. That's crazy. What about in this much more recent interview, I believe from 2015?
Did you ask anybody, hey, where do we get these? Where did these come from?
No, I really, there was so much other stuff that was flooding my brain that was just amazing, and I was so excited to be there. I didn't care where the thing came from. It was beginning to trickle into my mind. Boy, this is maybe flying saucer crashed in South Africa or something, and we got it, and we're taking it apart. This is great.
You eventually saw all of them, or you saw glimpses?
Well, when I looked through the doors, I could see.
As far as you could tell, they didn't look like they'd been in a crash. Right?
Well, there's one. There's one. And I mentioned this to you a long time ago, and I never added this one thing, which I'll add now. There was one, like I said, that had been shot with a projectile, and I know for a fact it came out of the water. That's all I know.
Oh, so now we're back to one being shot down and it came from the water. Okay, so now we're back to 1. There was shot and came out of the water. Somehow he knows that it came from the water. Okay, let's see if this changes. Now he's this is 2018.
Now, you have said that you worked at S4 on, did you say there were at least 9 craft that you knew of, alien craft, at this secretive site?
Yeah, there were absolutely 9. Yeah.
Okay. Now, apart from the sleeker sports model craft that you had mentioned in the past, can you give us an idea, perhaps, of what the condition of the other craft were in? Were they totaled? Were they shot down in a perfect condition, as if they'd been gifted to the military? What type of condition were they in, if you could say?
The condition of all the craft, with the exception of one, which it looked like they had intentionally fired a projectile at, just to see if the projectile would penetrate it. But with the exception of that craft, everything looked like it was new. Now, I've heard stories and, read on the internet about, theories about them being gifted or crash landing. Clearly, none of them crashed at all.
Oh, okay, so now we're back to none of them crashed. And the one that had damage to it wasn't shot down. It was they were experimenting on it, and they shot something at it to see if they could penetrate it. Okay, well, at least we're still back down to 1. Let's see here. In his autobiography in 2019, a year later, he said, "After all, we had these craft in our possession, and it was like they were shot down in some large-scale invasion. I still didn't know how we got them, and in truth, how it didn't matter." Okay, so like a year later in his autobiography, now they were all shot down in some large-scale invasion. When at the beginning of this, he's like, they were gifted to us. You could tell because of how sparkly clean they were. Okay, well, that's a little different than what you've been saying. What about when you were on Joe Rogan?
So they still have these things, supposedly.
I would guess. I mean, I don't have any information on that.
Have you ever asked anyone that has any inkling of any idea of where they got them or how they got them?
No, but something must have been said to me from Barry. But it was just too long ago, and I can't quite remember what was said, but it just left a seed in my mind. I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. So it's old. At least one of them is old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Whoa,
bro. Now one of them's from an archaeological dig. When he clearly stated specifically that wasn't the case. So now one's from the water, one's from an archaeological dig, one was shot down, they were all shot down, none of them were shot down. But his story never changes, right? Here he is on Coast to Coast in 2009.
The other part of that question he asked about was the skin. Did it have skin or is it just metallic?
Well, I called it metal, and again, each part of the research done is, as it gets late, my brain begins to run out of words. But
there he is with his every interview he does this. And this is 2009, so 10 years apart. He's still like, oh, my brain's doing the. I don't know, and it's because he knows he doesn't know if he said something. He's getting into specifics. He's not sure if he has stated it some other way, so he always has to be like, "Oh, my brain's not working."
It's all very compartmentalized, and the people that dealt with the metallurgy were a completely different group of people. I had no knowledge of it. The only light I can shine on it is the one time I walked across the craft and just slid my hand along it. It was cold, and that's the only reason I said it felt like metal. It was, cooler than the ambient air. Could it have been some exotic ceramic or something? Probably so. I'm sure it wasn't just an alloy of aluminum or anything along those lines. But that's about all I know about it. It was a pewter gray in color, as was everything on the inside and outside of the craft. So that's about all I can say as far as what the material was.
So in 2009, I don't know, like it could have been some kind of metal or some kind of exotic ceramic. I wouldn't know. I wasn't privy to that information. We were compartmentalized, but I can just guess. I guess it could be an exotic ceramic or some kind of alloy. But then in his book in 2019, for example, I learned that the bulk of the craft was manufactured from the same material. Tests had shown that it was not metallic in origin, nor was it ceramic. So 10 years later, the thing that he said in 2009, maybe it is. It could be metal, but now he totally remembers, no, it's not. So his story's all over the fucking place, but because it's these little tiny details and the big part of the story that people actually pay attention to, no one is sitting there salivating about the idea of like what's the surface of the craft made out of. That's all the minutia. What they care about is the story about the aliens. What they care about is that there's UFOs at Area 51. So if he messes up the little details every time he tells the story, no one fucking cares because they're not paying attention to that shit anyway. Their imaginations are running wild thinking about scenes from Independence Day and every other fucking alien movie they've ever seen, and they're picturing like UFOs and aliens in like, you know, on operation tables and these UFOs being dissected, you know, and backwards engineered. They don't know about any of the technical stuff. How would you? It's fucking alien technology. He's not even consistent on the size of the UFO that he worked on. In this interview, he says it's 30 to 35 feet. In this interview, he says 35 to 40 feet. In this interview, he's very specific all of a sudden. He has like an exact measurement.
He says that within a few days of working out at S4, he was shown an actual flying disc in one of the hangars.
When I was brought in by bus, and for the first time, one of the hangar doors, the one on the end, was open. The bus drove up and we stopped there, and clear as day in the hangar, taking up almost all the hangar, was the disc. Looked like something right out of a science fiction movie. And as I walked in there, I thought, well, this is the new advanced aircraft we've been working on, and this is why people keep seeing flying saucers, because it's ours, and we've just been testing it, probably for all these years.
And what color and size was it?
It was a dull stainless steel, pewter gray, very unimpressive color-wise. About 52.8 feet in diameter and about 16 feet high.
Oh, that's pretty exact all of a sudden. So first it's between 30 and 35 feet. Then it's between 35 and 40 feet. And then it's...
unimpressive color-wise. About 52.8 feet in diameter and about 16 feet high.
52.8 feet tall, wide? What? So now all of a sudden he's very, very exact with how big it is. It keeps getting bigger, by the way. It's grown almost 50% since the first time he told the story. So it's he's not even consistent about the fucking size. By the way, speaking of which, another way he made money, Testers models, like that company that makes the little, when you were a kid, I don't know if you ever did these models. My brother used to be into them, but you'd buy like these plastic models and build like airplanes and shit like that, and you glue it together and paint it and everything. And he sold his drawings for this sports model UFO to the Tester company and got money that way. I mean, this guy was cashing left, right, and sideways. This idea that he never made any money on it is fucking retarded. The other thing that's kind of funny is in the initial report and what matches the description of his sports model, it is based on this photograph from 1975 of a UFO. This is his whole sports model is 100% based on this photo of this UFO.
Scientist Bob LAZAR is convinced that the technology he saw being tested at a secret base in the Nevada desert is of alien origin, and for LAZAR, the proof is at least partially in the furniture. One of the 9 flying discs he says he saw at the base, which was designated S4, looks exactly like this UFO photographed in Europe. LAZAR called it the sport model.
I gave everything simple names. There's the top hat one, and the Jello mold, and the sport model operated, without any hitches at all. I mean, it looked new.
Problem is the sports model photo. It's actually based on a fraud that came out after the guy who came up with the fraud died, and his wife blew the whistle on it. This was Meyer. Get his first name. Where was it at? I didn't write it down. Anyway, his last name is Meyer. And his wife, after he died, said that he would make these models. Here's another one of his photos. He would make these models out of trash can lids and hubcaps and then throw them and take a photo. And these were, I guess you could say they were viral at the time. Things didn't work the same way, obviously, back then. But these went worldwide. People were convinced that these were real photos. It looks super hokey now, but like back then, I guess in 1975, people thought they were real. And in fact, they would say that they would send them to Kodak, and they'd send them to all these photography analysis places that would say, well, the photo hasn't been doctored. And it wasn't doctored. It was a photo. He was just building a model out of a trash can lid, throwing it across the yard, and then snapping a photo. And in fact, he kind of started a cult and said that he was visited by aliens all the time. He produced a photo of one of the aliens, and then the wife blew the whistle on where that photo came. This is one of the hot aliens that was visiting him, by the way. Oh, actually, not. The extraterrestrial women who he called Asket and Nira that were always visiting him, they were actually photos of a dancing routine called the Gold Diggers that were performing on the Dean Martin show. So he took a photo of his TV screen of these dancing blondes, and this is how dumb people were. For years, they believed that these, because you didn't have the internet, you couldn't, unless you'd seen that episode of the Dean Martin show, and remembered that the random blonde girl that was probably on that show one time, you wouldn't know. So he convinced a bunch of people with his trash can lids and photo of this blonde chick that he was being visited by aliens. And because that hadn't been revealed yet, Bob LAZAR said that was the trash can lid was the sports model. So anyway, there's a lot more, but bottom line is you got to look at this and ask yourself, well, why did this happen? Why is it that this was pushed so hard by people like John Lear? And does it have anything to do with people like Richard Doty, the guy on the right here? Richard Doty, there's a movie that he, what is it called? I forget. It's like I'll have to look it up. There's a documentary about where he admits to the I think he worked for the Air Force doing a disinformation campaign to hide the experimental work that was going on at an Air Force base. Let's see here. Richard Doty. I think it was at Kirtland Air Force Base. What movie? Let's see, Richard Doty. Mirage Men. It was called Mirage Men. So the Air Force and other branches of the military would often have disinformation campaigns, and you can imagine why, especially at a place at Area 51, why they might want to have a disinformation campaign about what's going on at Area 51 if they're developing secret weapons. And why it might make them laugh if everyone's looking for UFOs and not looking for stealth bombers and not looking for whatever other aircraft they're working on because they think that it's alien aircraft shit and that this kind of disinformation is not just for the American public, but it's for, Russian spies that were conducting espionage or what have you in the country. So we don't know. Could it be something like that? I'll tell you one thing that we do know about Jonathan Lear. He worked for the CIA. He was this is a verified fact. He was a CIA pilot that flew missions for the CIA going all the way back to 1967 and also all the way into the 80s flying missions for Iran-Contra. I know this because I heard him say so in a Art Bell interview in the mid-90s. He said that he was flying weapons for Israel, essentially, during Iran-Contra. So he's a CIA pilot who is pushing all this crazy stuff about alien treaties with the U.S. government, underground bases, reverse-engineered spacecraft, human-alien hybrids, talking about all this stuff just literally months before Bob Lazar, another odd person whose wife is involved with the Hells Angels and drug running, and he runs a prostitution business in Las Vegas, and his wife suicides or gets suicided or whatever that was 2 days after he marries some new girl who's wanted for fraud, from embezzling money from a bank, and he disappears from his creditors, and he's in Las Vegas for like 2 years, maybe 2 years after ditching his photo business and all of his creditors back in New Mexico. And now suddenly he's rubbing elbows with the ultra rich heir to the Lear fortune, being shopped around by Jonathan Lear to not just George Knapp, but also to Art Bell and also to anyone that'll listen. I mean, 100% embraced, full on embraced. He was the real deal as far as John Lear was concerned. And you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it like, well, it was a disinformation campaign that was brought on to fuck with the public for either to hide secret weapons or to get, there was a whole lot of pro-alien shit going on in the 1990s. I don't know what the whole deal with that was, but maybe it was tied into whatever that was meant to accomplish. I think it was also meant to, if you remember, look at the PatCon series. That's the same time frame. At the same time, the federal government was cracking down on militias and right-wing conspiratards. What do? They unleash this fucking alien shit, this UFO shit on that same community. Because those are the people that believed in this stuff. The same people that were joining militias, the same people that were, worried about the federal government overreach. Those are the people that were primed to believe that in some kind of government conspiracy with the aliens and all this other stuff. So now you have that going on. You've got those communities now all wrapped up in nonsense about UFOs. You have any kind of Russian espionage that's going on. You're confusing them, all the shit with your weird UFO technology stuff. So is that what it is? Or is it a case of Jonathan Lear is a rich kid that's kind of fucking retarded who believed in UFOs, and Bob Lazar told him exactly what he wanted to hear? Because Bob Lazar's stories coincidentally lined up exactly with what Jonathan Lear was saying to people at UFO conventions in the months leading up before he went public. So is it a case of Bob Lazar listening to some rich guy when he's having financial troubles? What I didn't get into is by 1990, he was convicted for pandering, running the prostitution ring. So that the prostitution ring thing is not just me guessing. He has a criminal record for that. He was busted running a illegal prostitution ring in Nevada, I think in 1990. I might have written it down here. Yeah, 1990, he was arrested for his involvement in the prostitution ring, and then he pled it down to a lesser charge, and only did 150 hours of community service for running a prostitution ring. So what's up with that? You got some guy who's running a prostitution ring, has really weird connections, has financial problems, sucking up to a rich guy or working with a rich guy to deceive the public. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's bullshit is really the answer to that question. And I'll tell you what, we could have saved a whole lot of time. We could have saved a whole lot of time if I had just skipped to the end here where I showed you this. This is Bob Lazar's dad's grave. Yes, Bob Lazar is Jewish. Bob Lazar is Jewish. His first wife with the Hells Angels was Jewish. They were married by a rabbi with the last name of Cohen. And Bob Lazar's family immigrated to America from Eastern Europe around the turn of the century. So there you go. I guess we didn't have to do all the rest of the stream. I could have just said, you know, Bob Lazar, boom, Jewish. So there you go. And look, Jonathan Lear, hyper-Zionist, obviously involved with running arms to Israel. So you've got that whole connection there. And by the way, that includes Art Bell to some extent. Art Bell had Jonathan Lear on anytime he fucking wanted to be on, was always very pro-Israel, and was a Mason, was a high-ranking Mason, Art Bell was. And so, you know, is that part of a larger disinfo campaign? Who knows? Who fucking knows? But whatever it is, it's not Bob Lazar working at Area 51 and actually seeing UFOs. That 100% did not happen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the best I can do in a stream. Like I said, there's a lot more you can find in terms of inconsistencies and weird shit in obvious ways that he's profiting off of it. And in just the way that people are caught in lies about this. And even the people that supposedly, there's one story, I forget all the details, but the bottom, I think it was Bigelow, one of the guys he brought with him to go look at the mysterious lights over at Area 51. He caught Bob Lazar with a Mylar balloon while everyone was looking the other way. He had a Mylar balloon behind a bush that he was releasing. And he's like, what are you doing with that? And he's like, oh, I forget his excuse, but it was well, that right there. You should know that this isn't real. Why is he taking to go see UFOs and then sneaking around some bush releasing a Mylar balloon while you're not looking? But anyway, so there's all kinds of shit like that where it's so obviously fake and bullshit, but yet people still take him seriously. And yet people like Joe Rogan, with the biggest podcast in the country or in the world for that matter, have Bob Lazar on as if he's some kind of serious person. I'm surprised Tucker Carlson hasn't interviewed him. Maybe he will. So maybe we're entering another phase with all this alien talk, where instead of paying attention to Iran-Contra and don't pay attention to Iran-Contra or the coming Patriot Act or the crackdown that we're doing on militias or no, don't pay attention to any of that stuff. Instead, worry about aliens. Watch X-Files. The aliens are here, guys. This is the real danger. This is what we really got to worry about. I mean, it's just, people it's funny because for what, the last few years, all I've heard from a lot of people is how they want to go back to the 90s. Congratulations. I guess we're going back. So anyway, that's all we got time for tonight. Let's take a look at Hyperchats. over on Odyssey. Looks like Love and Division is here because we actually have some. All right. Bum. Let's see here. All right. And sure enough, Love and Division. Love and Division. Hold on. Where's my little things at? Here we are.
White power, white power, white power, white fucking power. White power, white power, white fucking power. White power!
All right. Love and Division. I caught Jewish Alamo on replay. It really hit home. As a young atheist during the tail end of the Jesus People movement, I became a believer of Jesus in the context of what turned out to be a cult like Alamo. Although it was not so bad, there was a lot in common. Yeah, there were a lot of these kinds of cults that popped up around that time. So, yeah, I mean, there was someone that hyper chatted in they got cut off like the second half of their thing, but they made it sound like they were actually in that specific cult. And then you go on to say the name of the cult was the Forever Family. Well, that doesn't sound like a cult at all. What are you talking about, Love and Division? Nothing cult like that about that. The leader had an Anglo name, Stuart Trail. He was 40-ish and married to a 20-ish Jewish girl. I stayed in for 2 years and finally burned out. I did not lose faith in Jesus, but I learned a lot about control freaks. Well, there you go. The Jewish girlfriend or wife or whatever should have been an alarm bell too. But well, there you go. Yeah, like I said, there was a lot of these cults that popped up around that time period. I mean, America essentially lost its mind in the 60s. You could say even before that, but I mean, it was overtly losing its mind in the 60s and just never really recovered. Never really recovered. All right. So, there we go. Love and Division. I never set up entropy. Whoops. That's going to fuck me. Whoops. Forgot about that. Oh, well. Let's see here. I was down to the wire on this one. I was still trying to arrange things on the timeline as I went live, and I forgot to do the thing. Forgot to do the thing that pays the bills. Whoops. All right, let's see here. Well, now it's up. Not that it'll matter much. No, the stream's over. Let's go to Rumble then. All right, here we go. Let's see here. On Rumble, we got the Supreme Rabbi Satan says, I love aliens. They drive prices up and wages down. Oy vey. Then we got the Supreme Rabbi Satan again says, Springfield, Ohio, bitches. And then that's the same one over again for some reason. Then we got Rupert. All right, Rupert says, replay gang here. I just finished a Jeetel something. I don't know what that word is. I purchased Mein Kampf for less than $3 from a roadside bookstore. See you on Wednesday, Professor Stack. And then he says, Heil Hitler, I think. Well, I appreciate that, Rupert. Then we got Supreme Rabbi Satan again. We just did that one.
White fucking power.
All right. And the Supreme Rabbi Satan says, I want a beehive. Well, it's, you have to do better than that then. I don't know. Maybe we should do like progress bars or something like that. Beehives are, they're top tier. Not that I don't appreciate what you're doing for me there, Rabbi Satan, but it's the beehive is extra special. Extra special. But I appreciate that, Rabbi Satan. Then we got Fanny Schrute. Fanny Schrute says, Replay Gang, looks like it'll be a good one. P.S. Fuck you, Rupert. You should have stayed in India. Pitt. Well, there you go. And then Rupert is angry at Fanny Schrute. And then Fanny Schrute is angry at Rupert. And it goes back and forth. All right. And then we got Art Stanton.
White fucking power.
Art Stanton says, speaking of guys called Rupert, I'm amazed by how many Brits are pinning their hopes on Rupert Lowe. I can't help thinking I've seen this movie before, and it was called Nigel Farage. I'd be happy to be wrong, was the text that got cut off. Well, I'll tell you what, yeah, it's one of those things where I know a lot of British people who are excited about it, and I try to stay out of their politics if I don't know for certain about one thing or another, because I'm not an expert. My intuition tells me that you are correct, that there is no political solution, and so, but at the same time, who knows, maybe, hopefully we're wrong, but I don't have a strong opinion about it because I'm not British. And I don't know, I mean, I was wrong about Trump, but I'm American. The first time I was wrong. I mean, I was in 2016, right? Like I was excited for Trump. And then immediately afterwards, like the first day, I was like, oh, we fucked up. Oh no, he's letting the Clintons go. And he just said they were good people. This isn't good. And it was all downhill from there. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I suspect that the odds are not in the favor of political solution, but who knows? Then we got this, Preem Rabbi Satan says, Oy vey, Day of the Rope Part 2. Announcement on that soon. I got a couple I teased, and I must continue to tease. Couple big announcements soon. And I know soon can mean anything, but I do mean soon. Couple big announcements soon. Possibly as early as this week. In fact, probably as early as this week. Some big stuff. Some people already know. Some people have figured it out. But I cannot say yet. Soon, very soon. Probably this week. And then we got Rupert again, who's very upset. And all right, I'm not gonna do the back and forth stuff here. I appreciate you guys paying money to yell at each other. Yeah, there we go. And then we got Supreme Rabbi Satan throwing into it. And then, okay. Now we get through all that. And we get to Louis, beam me up. Says Replay Gang. Shout out to Liver Morium. All right. Then we got Archon Crusader. Archon Crusader says, big announcement stream. Let's fucking go. Well, not yet. I said soon. I didn't say it necessarily be this stream. I thought it was probably going to be this stream to be honest. My hands are tied. My hands are tied very soon. Very soon. Very soon. All right. Then we got Dagtastic says, I was digging through my iTunes library and discovered an episode of How I Met Your Mother. I downloaded it for free many years back. I couldn't make it past the first 5 minutes. So much propaganda. Yeah, I've never been able to sit through 5 minutes of that show either. I don't know why it was as popular as it was. It was mostly girls that liked it, but yeah, lots of people like that stuff. I could never get into sitcoms. There were some exceptions, but anything with a laugh track, I just made me want to put a screwdriver in my ear. And again, there were some exceptions, but yeah, that was not one of them. That was definitely not one of them. Then we got Archon Crusader says Blonde Collab Edition. That's what Archon Crusader says. Then we got Cabbage Bandit with a big dono.
Money is power. Money is the only weapon that the Jew has to defend himself with.
Look how Jewy this fag is. I don't know why all those things got fucked up. Cabbage Bandit says, looking forward to the replay. Thanks, Devin. Well, I appreciate that. Cabbage Bandit with the big dono. Then we got Jafig.
White power.
All right, Jafig says, do you think that the Germans having this tech is a myth? In Iowa right now, pretty nice as far as it being white. Knowing it will change is depressing. Yeah, I'm not one of these people that think that Germans had UFO technology. I'm not one of these like Nazi bases in Antarctica people. It's just that, I understand technology enough to understand that it's not as, what we have is not insane. It's not like it's all sensical, like that the path that we took from over the last 100 years when it comes to technology, there's nothing about it that doesn't make sense. There's not like where did this come from? I kind of feel like a lot of people that don't understand technology generally are prone to believe in this stuff because to them it's all magic, right? They don't know how their phone works. They just, it's all just I've talked about this. It's the magic box problem with a lot of people who, especially these days, who use technology and have no idea how it works. And so it does become, it's almost like caveman trying to explain lightning and coming up with, some kind of weird myth about it. It's the same thing. It's Zoomer doesn't understand, iPhone and comes up with alien technology or whatever. Right. And, so I don't see why there doesn't need to be an alien explanation for anything that we have. I generally speaking, my view of aliens is the universe, as big as it is, the probability that there is other life that is intelligent out there is not zero. The probability that other life would be intelligent, sufficiently sophisticated to find our planet, and then to travel to it, and then to interact with it on a regular basis, that's a lot less probable. Not impossible, but a lot less probable. Like a lot less probable. And just every time we have an example of something like Bob Lazar or any of these other stories, that they always end up being frauds. And there's no example that I'm aware of where, I mean, you could say there's some cases where there's question marks and who knows, right? And, you know, like, for example, the weird footage that they're promoting around a couple years ago with that fighter pilot, that naval pilot, you know, and the Tic Tac stuff and all. It's like, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what this stuff is. It could be something we made. I don't know. It could be maybe there's a race of beings that lives at the bottom of the ocean. You know, like that movie, whatchamacallit, Abyss. Right? It could be that. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I tend not to assert things that I don't know. And I don't know. But if just going on my gut, I would say almost all of these alien things are bullshit. That's my sense. But I'm not theologically or philosophically or even rationally against that possibility. I think in terms of probability, it's pretty small. It's pretty small. But not zero. Not zero. All right, then we got, let's see here. Jafik again says, I started a job and I'm in Iowa for training. Happy to making a lot of money again. Enjoy the donos. Iowa is being flooded with the Chinese. I feel like we should have a Chinese button. Like a ching chong chingy. I feel like I did have one at one point, didn't I? No, I don't see the ching chongy. No, I don't have a... What is this?
But Mooley Cohen is working on it.
That's not it. That's an old one. Yeah. Well, there you go. The Chinese menace. The Yellow Menace. The Yellow Menace is invading Iowa. And then we got Jafik again says, seeing the online right trying to adopt the Hoppa skater whore has irritated me. Looks like a move to me to show the test tube diversity as a strength. Well, look, there is a multicultural right that I've pointed out now for a while, to the anger of many, that if people are not explicitly pro-white, they have a different objective. At least they have different goals than I have. And because we don't share the same goals, they can't be trusted. And that's the problem, is there are people currently right now trying to hijack the pro-white right and turn them into some kind of 1990s multicultural faggot fest. That's part of it. You know, oh, the base Hoppa chick. You know, but look, base Hoppa chick. It's like, no. I mean, look, I don't wish her any ill will, but like, let's not make her a mascot. So, I mean, to the extent that and I don't know, I've saw like a couple tweets. I haven't seen like some wave of tweets or like that, but I don't. But yeah, it shouldn't be something that's like, oh yeah, based Hoppa. That should never be a thing. Let's see here. Occidental Front says, Devin, have you listened to the song Hate to Say I Told You So by the Hiles? Better hear it before it gets taken down. Satire, of course. I have not. I'll maybe I'll check that out after the show. Then we got Trufflebee says, appreciate ya. Well, I appreciate it right back. Trufflebee. Then we got Reaver from Craigslist. Reaver from Craigslist says, is the big announcement going to be TND? Replay gang here, so I'll find out tomorrow. Have a good one, Devin. Keep up the good work. No, it's not. It's nothing that awesome. Like I said, I think most people, they kind of know what it is. Or do they? Or do they? Or am I just fucking with you guys? Or maybe there is no announcement. Who knows? Who knows? All right, then we got Purple Catmint. Purple Catmint says, hi, Devin. All the data centers being built is concerning. They use tons of electricity and hundreds of millions of gallons of water. Utility bills could go astronomical. Well, I think this is just going to tie into like the smart city type stuff, right? They're going to say that, they're going to try to control rural water rights. And I mean, luckily in terms of the electricity stuff, solar the solar technology is such that, if it wasn't for having to have air conditioning out here, I would be 100% solar. The air conditioning is the only thing that gets in the way of that. That and like maybe, tube radios would be, it wouldn't be impossible, but I wouldn't be able to run them very often. I'd have to like save up my electricity to use them. But yeah, at least for where I live, solar is an option. But the problem is going to be, it's already happened in some places where they start making it so you can't even dig a well. They'll tell you can't dig a well and get your own water out of your own land. But we'll see. I mean, I think that, the further AI gets, the more, what's the right word? I guess micromanaged society is going to get, because it's going to, that technology is going to allow them to do that. But do not fret yet. I don't think that's anything to worry about right this second. All right, then we got Penna Kalisa, maybe. As always, great stream. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And then we got the Shogun. The Shogun says, Bob Lazar edition, part of the Turn of the Century series, rather. Yep, yet another immigrant his family were immigrants that came from Eastern Europe around the turn of the century. On both sides, by the way. Although I think his mom's family might have come, it's still sort of Eastern Europe. Came from Germany. Let's see here. Then we got the Shogun again, says, watch Mark Collette's stream on Rupert Lowe. I think it's his most recent video. Very good breakdown. That is, if you're curious about Britain's current situation. I might check that out. Put it on the background just so I know what the British perspective is. It's always good to know that sort of a thing. Then we got Jafig says, I think I just want UFO Nazis to glass us. Thank you for your insights, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah, it would be nice. It'd be nice. But, Oh, look, Entropy blew up, actually. Well, that's good. All right. Entropy, we got VTuber Nationalist says, have you ever heard of the band Black Magic SS? They're not a NatSoc band. At least I don't think they are. It's more or less up in the air, and they leave it ambivalent. Not that I would really care if they were NatSoc. They're really good. No, I've never heard of them. I've never heard of them. And then VTuber Nationalist also says their sound is really weird. I've never heard anything like BMSS. It's like a mixture of black metal, electronica, shoegaze, neo-disco, prog rock, and other stuff. I don't know how to describe it. When I first heard them, I thought, wow, this is really weird. But as I listened, I became addicted. Well, it's always good to have new kinds of sounds. New kinds of sounds. Sometimes, often with, like with dubstep, for example, it's new and it sounds really interesting and cool for a while. And then you're like, I hate this. But then they usually come back into fashion. It's kind of like, like the new wave synth pop of the 80s got really old after a while. And in the middle of the 90s, they kind of went the opposite direction with going super analog. And then it got cool again for a while. It goes in waves, I just think people get burned out on a certain kind of sound and then it comes back. Then we got Gorilla Hand says, Devin, I sent you some big hyper chats before the show. Also, I can't find your video on YouTube about the movie 7 and 9 Inch Nails. What was the name? Well, let me see if I can get to the big super chat thing first. I don't remember the name. I mean, if it's on YouTube, that's a long time ago. Let's see here. Count. We are. What's the date today? Okay. Oh, we got a bunch before the show, it looks like. All right. Well, that's good. I don't know how they were going in because I didn't have it open. But let's do it. Let's see here. '18th would have been Wednesday, right? We didn't stream Wednesday, did we? No, we didn't. When is this from? The 15th? When was the 15th? Okay, so that was the last time we streamed. So let's see here. Okay, I don't remember doing this one, so I'm going to go all the way back to the man himself. I might have answered it, but it's been a while. So the man himself. All right. The man himself says, do you think it's a bad strategy for young white men to move to the city to advance their education and careers while also building discreet fraternities there, not harboring any hopes for politics, but as a long-term strategy, controversial? Also, do you have any thoughts on Richard Spencer and his REM theory? Thank you for what you do. I don't think it's like, look, I wouldn't want to raise kids in a city. But you could do it. If you homeschooled your kids and there were other families, and you could even argue maybe that would be easier to do because there'd be more people. Maybe there'd be more like-minded homeschooled kids in the cities. I've just never liked cities. I've done that thing. I've lived in some of the biggest cities in America and I hate it. And so I have chosen to do something else. And but yeah, I mean, as far as a young man, especially if you want to increase your income and work in high status jobs, those are typically in the city. There's more women that you can meet in the city. It's not the worst thing. It's what I did. I mean, I started out living in the biggest cities I could live in, working at the biggest companies I could. So I get it. I just wouldn't want to raise a family in a big city. That's just me personally. And look, and it's not just rural isn't just automatically better. There's some shitty rural places too. There are rural places where it's very low IQ and poverty stricken, right? Or there's rural places where it's full of migrant workers. It's like all Mexican, especially in the Southwest, right? So rural doesn't automatically mean better, and city does not automatically mean worse. But I wouldn't want to live in a city, raising kids in a city, especially because of how expensive it is and the amount of. I feel like it's harder, depending on the kind of work you're in. Depending on the kind of work you're in, it could be harder, or it could be easier, depending on the kind of work you're in, to build a dynasty. If you're able to build a dynasty and raise a family safely in that environment, then yeah, go for it. That's what's important. Geographically, it doesn't really matter. I would say this only because, and look, maybe it'll never happen. Maybe, there will never be some kind of problem where living in the city becomes, too dangerous or whatever in your lifetime. But I would keep in mind the very good possibility that especially as white people dwindle, and that'll happen first in the big cities, it'll become increasingly more dangerous for you, your wife, and your kids. And even if you are, like all those opportunities, not every opportunity is good. So all those opportunities that are increasing, some of those increased opportunities are opportunities for violent murder. You know what I mean? Like, there are opportunities for you to be violently murdered. Those also increase. So yeah, it's a case by case. I don't think there should just be a rule. I think that I have chosen to go to a rural area and flee the city and do something like my ancestors did. I mean, that's just in my blood. My ancestors have been doing that for like 500 years. They've been leaving the big cities, going out in the wilderness, and then building something, and then it gets too crowded and they leave again. I mean, that's literally the story of my ancestors. They left Europe and came here, and then they left the East Coast, and they kept going west, and they kept going west, and they kept going west till they made it all the way to fucking California. And which brings us to now, right? Like, I've got, and now I'm like, now I'm in the wilderness. So that's what my family's been doing since forever. And that doesn't mean that's the best thing for everybody. I don't know what Richard Spencer's REM theory is. I'm assuming it's not rapid eye movement or the band. But then again, maybe it is. I don't know. So I don't have an opinion on it because I don't know what it is. So I'd have to hear it. But thank you very much to the man himself. Like I said, I'm pretty sure you sent that one. I didn't see it. I don't remember seeing that. Then we got O-Phase. O-Phase says, hey, Devin, testing. Last several chats went into the void. You don't need to go looking for them. It was late January, early February. I'm perpetual replay gang, so oftentimes send chats on days you do not stream. Historically, it worked fine. Not sure what fucked up or entropy or what the fuck entropy is doing. Appreciate your work. Yeah, it's a little... I need to get a hold of them. I actually reached out to them about a week ago and have not heard a response. And but I need to get a hold of them. For a couple reasons, but yeah, I just don't know that this is a big moneymaker for them. You know what I mean? So I don't think that they have all hands on deck on this project. I don't know what else they do, but my guess is this doesn't bring in a lot of money. So I think that's the problem. And I don't know. Are they ideologically in line with us? I don't know. If they're not, I could see why that wouldn't be a priority. You know what I mean? Like, it might be like an issue where it doesn't make a lot of money and they hate us. I don't know though. I don't know. I've never talked to them. All right. Then we got Jesse Poe Holiday says, rewatch Trump and the Jews, a good addendum to the recent Epstein release. a few reoccurring cast of characters like Leon Black, former CEO of the firm that owned LifeTouch, perhaps a future stream topic. Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps. All right, let me make sure it didn't fuck up. It did fuck up. And then we got Jesse Poe Holiday says, stepfather recently said, after I tried to J-pill him, that Trump's policies are similar to Uncle Adolf's. I fell out of my seat. Makes sense since him and his brother take daily prophylactic ivermectin. Yeah, well, there you go. They must be watching X-22 report. Then we got Mr. Skywalker says P1. I don't know if you meant to say P1. P1, pray for Iran. Part 1. Pray for Iran. It looks like Zog is about to carpet bomb them. Do you think the Iran government and military can survive this, or will Russia and China step in and help? Either way, war will be ugly. I mean, look, if it's just Iran and with no other help, I don't think it's going to go well for them. I just don't think. I mean, Iran might not be a bunch of cavemen, but they're not the full force of the American empire either. And I think they would need China or Russia to step in, and then you're starting to I don't know that they would because you start to get into like World War III territory once that starts happening in earnest. You know what I mean? So I don't know that they would in any meaningful way. I'm sure in some ways they would help, right? Just because that's what we would do, right? Like if Russia, well, it's what we did do, right? When Russia was going after Afghanistan, and we were giving Afghanistan like Stinger missiles and shit like that, right? So, I'm sure something like that would probably happen. I don't know though. I don't know. All right, let's see here. Okay. And then here's part 2. People are saying they will bomb Iran on Jewish Purim, March 2nd. That seems likely. Still, though, I find the Arab axis of resistance inspiring, especially the way Hamas and Palestinians have held on for so long under the constant attacks. My people, white Europeans, I find to be petty and pathetic more often than not. That stream you did on the internet dating scam murder is just one example of this. It's sad to see whites are so cucked compared to Arab and Persian jihadists. When do you think that white Europeans will bounce back to similar ideological and warrior state as before? Well, there's a couple things working against us with that. First of all, everyone's too fat and happy. Everyone's fat and happy. They'll complain on Twitter, but ultimately they have all the things that they want. They all have, the calories and entertainment that they want. And so I think that that's a big issue. Another big issue is genetically we're kind of fucked right now. We had a big culling of our warrior class over the last several wars. Talking about everything from Desert Storm, Vietnam, Korea, World War II, World War I. I mean, we've been just wiping out our soldiers in big numbers all across the West for like a century. And that's certainly had a problem or an issue. There's also the fact that we have a bunch of, it's not the same whites. It's not founding stock Americans anymore. We do have a bunch of these non-whites, these Hapas, these mixed race people. We have Ellis Islanders. And that matters. That does make a difference. It changes it changes the country in a way that really is difficult to undo, if not impossible. So I think that it just like you're going to have, things will get worse before they get better. Bottom line, things will have to get worse because harsh harsh selection pressures will have to be applied to get us back to where we were. And it's not a fire I want to go through, but I feel like that's a necessary step. Thank you very much there, Mr. Skywalker. Then we got Anton Ove says, Flight 1771, it was a similar incident like that guy going rampage on the train. Only this time it was on a plane. And yes, it was a black person again. TV show Mayday. Air Disaster made an episode about it. Well, there you go. I'll copy that link into my notes. I won't gay link you. All right. Then we got I Love Being White says the case of Hootie Croy, an American Indian man, would be an interesting stream. He was charged with murdering a police officer, but was let off after the jury was swayed by tales of his genocided ancestors, and his lawyer was Jewish. The case of Hootie Croy, huh? That sounds vaguely familiar. I'll add that to my notes. All right. Then we got Sam Hyde, or this is from I Love Being White, says Sam Hyde on his Sam Hyde show, he came out against Return to the Land and said anyone wanting to build new communities out in the woods is a faggot. He said this on the extended version of his show Behind the Paywall. I don't know why these guys got to come out against it. Well, that's because, there's some people that are city dwellers that have never built anything and don't have ancestors that ever built anything. They are descended from people who came here to enjoy the things that our ancestors built, and it just doesn't compute. And I would probably count him amongst those people that are like that, that are city dwellers. I mean, he's clearly a city dweller who is big into diversity as our strength. Just look at who he surrounds himself with. So is he oppositional to white people? No, but he's not a white nationalist, and he's not a founding stock American, and he's not, he doesn't have pioneer blood coursing through his veins, they're just, some people aren't going to get it. They're not going to get it. And, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, it's, there's no reason to talk shit about it though. I haven't seen it, so I can't really say, I can't really comment on what I haven't seen him say. So I don't know, but if he's talking shit about it, that's not great. Then we got Purple Sage.
White power.
Purple Sage says, great stream as usual. I learned something new every time. Thank you for all your hard work. Well, I appreciate that. Are we caught up with the normal ones yet? We're not. There's a whole bunch that didn't get in. All right. Thank you very much, Purple Sage. Then we got Righteous Muffin. White power. White power. I like that one. Righteous Muffin says, good evening, Devin. I've been catching up on your shows in the last year. I got to about 4 years ago. Good Lord, you need to have a warning not to take all the black pills at one time. But seriously, I appreciate what you do, and you've opened my eyes a lot. I can't even listen to regular news or YouTubers anymore. Thank you for your hard work. Well, I appreciate that, Righteous Muffin. And, yeah, you know, I get it. You don't want to overdose on black pills. It's maybe something that's you got to build up a tolerance to, right? It's like the first time, if you've never had a cigarette before, you have a cigarette and you don't have any tolerance to it, you just start throwing up and you're dizzy and all that shit. But if you've had a lot of cigarettes, then you can like smoke a pack and never feel it at all. That is a little bit how the black pill is. There are people who get really sensitive and really emotional. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but like, especially I remember when I was doing YouTube stuff and you just start talking about people, you know, someone's favorite movie and they get really mad at you and have a little fucking fit about it. But eventually I think they start to figure it out. But yeah, try not to OD. But thank you very much for your support there, Righteous Muffin. And then we got Righteous Muffin again.
White fucking power!
Righteous Muffin again says, follow up. The deep dives you do are incredible. Please keep it up. I love the videos about the older history of the country. Are there any of your videos that you recommend from the past 4 years? Also, if you still have a Telegram, how does one join? Yeah, there's I don't know. Is there like a way I can link it? I'm going to assume you're in Odyssey if you're using Entropy. Let me see if I can share a link to it. How do I share a link to this? View channel info. Yeah, it's just t.me/Devon Stack. So that's easy. t.me/Devon Stack. All right. All right. Thank you very much there, Righteous Muffin. Are you talking about, by the way, Righteous Muffin? Were you talking about the chat? Because there's also a black pilled Telegram chat. In which case, if you are still here, Righteous Muffin, I don't know how to link that specifically, but I'm sure there are people in the Odyssey chat at the very least that can share the link to that. Or in the Rumble chat maybe too. I don't know how to, is there a way to, let's see here. Yeah, I'll let someone in the chats show you how to do that or send a link to that. Then we got Gorilla Hands.
White power!
All right, Gorilla Hands says, I have been watching videos of Bob Lazar on YouTube recently. Lazar with George Knapp and John Lear are the real OG alien guys on Coast to Coast. I never believed everything they said, excuse me, but I found it entertaining. I always thought Lazar's story was fake or exaggerated. I did an early life check on him, found nothing suspicious. Well, I bet too late. Not now. He's definitely Now, yeah, apparently he sent this before the stream. I'm assuming. Part 2, found nothing suspicious. I then Googled his last name and found this, of Eastern European origin. Yep, there you go. Romanian, Hungarian, or Ashkenazi Jew. Every single time. I am also interested to see if there's a clip of you being on Alex Jones' show with him calling you Dave On. The idea of him calling you that is amusing. I don't know where that would even be, but yeah, it was around the time I did the video about the bird box. So on YouTube, there's a review of the bird box, and it was after I like of the week that I did that video. He had me on and then kept calling me Dave On. I don't know where you would find that. I never recorded it. So I don't know where that would be. But yeah, that was a long time ago. That would have been, that's got to be like 2017 or maybe 18. But that's quite a long time ago. That's quite a long time ago. But yeah, if there's an InfoWars archive and you look around that, I wonder if there's I wonder if AI would know. I'm going to ask AI. Here we go. According to AI, it was January of 2019. January 8th, 2019. That's probably it. I don't know where you find a copy of InfoWars, but according to AI, it's January 8th, 2019. Well, I'll ask AI. Maybe we can find it. That'd be kind of funny. Let's see here. January 8th, 2019. Yeah, I don't think it has. Here's the thing is I feel like oh wait, here's one. This might be it.
Leading up front.
Yeah, here's me.
A CENTCOM, and I mean one.
What many things, but some of these
So
things
this is
are
20. This one's 2018. Let me see here. So this is 2018. Can I actually play this on the screen? I feel like it's gonna be kind of embarrassing because it's like almost 10 years ago now. Can I just download this?
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order.
I feel like it's gonna be embarrassing. I almost don't want to play it. I don't know. Let's see. Is this going to download into respectable? It'll be here in about 15 seconds. I don't know. This is going to be kind of embarrassing. I feel like. Well, I'll play the opening and see it. We'll just see if he says Dave On. So this is from November of 2018. And I don't know how Jew-pilled I was yet. And I might have been, I don't even know how overtly racist I was being at this point. But let's see. I know I got too racist for Alex Jones on one of my appearances, but I don't know if it was this one. Let's see here.
Totally vindicated, it's taken over. Rob Deuce coming in real briefly, though. Huge news on this Florida fraud, the hacking, the scams. I mean, this is a real war we're in. Continuing, Mr. Stack of blackpill.com, Devin Stack. I've been asking questions here. There's only 4 minutes left of this segment. Another 10-minute segment.
This must be up from the second part of it. They call me Mr. Stack and then call me Devin. Where's the, I don't know which one it is then. But this is from November 9th, 2018. I feel like I was... I'm kind of embarrassed. I almost don't want to play. Let me see what we're talking about.
Who you were, something that proved that you were coming from the White House, there would be absolutely no reason to be anonymous. You know, and so you have a lot of people that are kind of latching on to what many things, but some of these things are coincidences. Some of these things are just doing research. You know, it's not that hard to.
What the fuck am I talking about?
They said blow this operation, and I did. They even because we weren't sure who they were at first. You understand that?
Well, and the thing that I wasn't sure honestly either when I didn't want to talk about it until I could see where this was going.
QAnon, I think.
But there was a lot of YouTubers making a lot of money, quite frankly, covering.
You're so smart. QAnon. I'm not kissing your ass. You just did it right there. I noticed right away, if we covered QAnon in a positive way, just in the accidents we did early on, it was suddenly pushed with millions of views and total monetization. And then that's when I went,
Okay. Anyway, you can check that out. Apparently that's me saying, back then, you know, obviously QAnon is fake and gay. So I don't remember. I don't think this is the first time, though. I feel like I was on before that. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we talked about on that one. Anyway, that's kind of funny. I was so young. I was so young and full of hope and dreams. All right, where's the entropy again? All right. We were at okay, here we go. Then we got Gorilla Hands. It says, instead of faggots, in honor of Art Bell and Coast to Coast, could you play a clip of Neil Armstrong beating up the alien on the moon? I don't know which one it is. It might be this one. Nope. No.
White fuck.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Then we got Gorilla Hands again says, I also have been getting this advertisement on YouTube with a black queen shilling for some book. In this book, she says the first European colonists would eat the natives and some other blood libel bullshit. The book is definitely anti-white propaganda. I'm so sick of this bullshit. Let me see here. I've also been getting this advertisement for YouTube with a black queen shilling some book. I just turn off all ads, bro. Use Brave. No ads ever again. Even if you're on your phone, don't use the YouTube app. Use Brave, and you don't get ads on YouTube. The only time it's a problem is if you do like which I don't, the YouTube Pro or whatever, the features that like what does it let you do? Like it lets you run it in the background, or I don't know. I just use Brave. I use Brave on everything, and I certainly don't give YouTube money. And then you don't have to worry about ads. All right, thank you very much there, Gorilla Hands. Then we got Black Phillip says, Devin, the Tucker Huckabee interview was an amazing look into the absurdity of dispensationalism. My question to you is, we know Tucker glows, but do you believe he's an actual far-right winger deep down? I don't believe that. I think that I just think that he's just a different kind of Christian, like than Huckabee. Huckabee is ultra-Zionist, obviously. I mean, probably about as Zionist as you can get, like Huckabee is. He's basically like the kind of Zionist that you would have seen working in the Bush administration. He embodies like that Southern evangelical. I mean, it's a shrinking part of the Republican Party, but it's still alive and well. Whereas I think Tucker is more old school WASP, but still has Zionist leanings to some degree. But I don't know. I don't know him personally. I just know there's a lot of suspicious things about him. I know that he comes from an intelligence background. I know that he has, dubious ties with dubious people, and I've never, been shy about pointing those things out. I don't think that he's magically based, but, do people change? Sure. Do they change that much, especially if they come from money? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that he is pressure valve Tucker, but, I'm also black-pilled just on the whole thing, so what would you expect me to say? Then we got Nostra Nazi, 5-month subscriber streak. Appreciate that. Then we got Blunderbuss. Blunderbuss says, any comment on Dave, Cam, and Blonde of the Backlash going their own way? If you'd rather not say anything, that's fine. Well, did I mention there was an announcement coming up? All right. Then we got Gorilla Hand says, I never understood how these scientists are supposed to reverse engineer an alien spaceship. It's like asking a caveman to reverse engineer a cell phone. Well, exactly. That's the other thing too, is it doesn't even make sense if it's like some kind of technology that the way he describes it is it's indistinguishable from magic. What do they hope to accomplish from doing that anyway? And certainly, how could they reverse engineer enough to add to our technological knowledge enough? I don't know. At the same time, you could say maybe by observing if there was, like some kind of super warp drive thing, maybe you didn't know how to use it or how it was doing what it was doing, but simply by measuring it, you could learn from it a little bit. But yeah, you'd never be able to take it apart and fix it. I mean, that's not even like caveman. I mean, even if you go to John Lear's dad, who was inventing the car radio, back in the 1930s or whatever, if you gave him a cell phone, he would just be like, what the fuck is this? He wouldn't be able to, and that's just a couple generations back. He was one of the smartest electrical engineers that we had. And just by that short period of time, it's, we've already surpassed anything he'd be able, it's well beyond his understanding. And so if they're 2,000 or 10,000 years ahead of us, then it's just impossible. Then we got VTuber Nationalists. Have we finally caught up with the normal thing? We have. Okay, we did that one already. Did that one. We did that one. Now we're back to VTuber Nationalist again. Says the entire catalog is on YouTube. The channel Death Fetish has most, and this is the music he was talking about earlier, has most of their stuff, but other channels have what DF is missing. BMSS is also on Spotify. Please give them a listen. I want to know what you think. My favorite songs are Dinosaurs, The Truth, Mystery, Burning Bridges, and Step Into the Night. Oh, one last thing. Every Australian that I know who I've exposed this band to, for some reason instantly falls in love with them. I don't know why. A lot of Balkan people like them too. Well, there you go. I might check it out. Thank you very much, VTuber Nationalist. Then we got Sacred Squirrel.
White fucking power!
Sacred Squirrel says, I may be out of your favor for two reasons. I am under 5'8", and I refuse to use Windows or Apple. Let my son know about your show tonight because he has kept up with some of the UFO business and watched X-Files when he was younger. I still listen to you even though you are a Linux hater and a heightist. Well, I'm not a Linux hater. I would use Linux if it had the same software capabilities. It's just for what I do, Linux sucks. It's superior for lots of other things, just not what I do. So I would use Linux if I didn't do media, I guess is the way to put it. It has always lagged on the media side of things. And things have gotten better. It's not it used to be horrible. It's not horrible anymore. It's got a lot better. And like everything you could say, like from Blender to, I don't know what their editing program is now, but I'm sure it's like not complete shit like it used to be. I use GIMP. I use GIMP in Windows. I don't have Photoshop installed. I use GIMP. So, GIMP is a little ghetto, but it does what I want, and it's good enough. And so whenever I can use open source software like that, I do. It's just that they don't have. And look, OBS I think works on Linux now, right? But just a lot of what I do doesn't. Increasingly, it's better. Increasingly, it's better about having more software choices. As far as being 5'8", no one's perfect. No one's perfect. I was 5'8" when I was like 7. I shot up so fast, and then I just inexplicably stopped. Like at age 14, I stopped getting taller. But 5'8's not crazy short. I mean, it's below average, right? The American average, I feel like, isn't that like 5'10", 5'9", something like that? So it's not like you're like, you're not like a wee man. But yeah, I won't hold that against you. Yeah, and the Linux thing, maybe someday. Look, here's one thing that'll probably change that. The more we use AI, or at least me, the less that I'm using actual, animation software and just using AI. AI is pretty much platform independent, So and increasingly, I think that's just how all software is going to get like that, where it's maybe not like, maybe. I look, I've been predicting since the 90s that more like what they want eventually is for computers to go back to how it was like in the 70s, where you didn't have a computer, you had a terminal that was hooked up to a supercomputer in the back room, right? So you didn't actually have a hard drive. Everything was literally, like in the old days of if you went to like a computer lab in the library, that had some ghetto old thing from the 80s or something. You just had a terminal. It had no internal drive at all. It just had it was a network card connected to a keyboard and a monitor. And that's what they want. They want everything to be controlled and centralized at some, cloud data center thing. And all the software to not be installed, but you just run it from a browser. And I think that's eventually where it's going. I mean, it's already going there, but I think we're getting closer and closer to that, at which point it won't matter. It won't matter what operating system you use because everything will be in a browser. A lot of the quote unquote software I use these days is basically in a browser now. So yeah, I mean, eventually Windows sucks. It's not, I don't love Windows. That's what I've always had to use for a lot of my software, but more and more that's less the case. Thank you very much. And then we got Optimistically Pessimistic says, "Hey Devin, Replay Gang here. I've been catching up on your recent streams from the past couple of months. I hope this Groiper Fuentes beef hasn't soured your opinion on mixed race people too much. Disclosure, I'm half beaner myself. Perhaps you could spare me from the pit or not. I'll check out the stream later." Look, it is what it is, right? Yeah, look, I'm always going to be whites first. White pride worldwide, obviously. But the whole brown Groiper thing, it's, it soured me on a lot of things. But I do appreciate it. Optimistically pessimistic. If you're leaning into your white side, you still got to go back, but you'll go back last. You're at the very bottom of the list. So, it's fine. But I appreciate that optimistically pessimistic. It's America, man. The Amerimutt meme is real. It is. Nigel Cringeworthy says, "It's crazy how everything that white people used to do, lock up crazy people, segregate from blacks, keep women at home, keep foreigners out, divorce laws, etc., was changed by Jews over the over the 20th century. They also removed Christianity from the public sphere. See Engel versus Vitali." I think that's how you say that. Well, it wasn't just Jews. There was also it was an Irish lady, right? What was the big Supreme Court case that took, maybe it was what took prayer out of school. I forget now, but there was a big fat Irish lesbian looking lady that was responsible. I'm sure her lawyers were Jewish, but I think that was like in the 70s or 80s. It's been a long time since I looked into it. But yeah, it is. The every single time meme is not just a meme. Thank you very much, Nigel Cringeworthy. Then we got Optimistically Pessimistic again. Also, a term you can use for mixed race mutants like myself is Mischling or Mischling. German for mixed race, which the Nazis used to describe people who were half Jew and half German. Anyway, keep up the good work. Oh, no, I know about Michelins. You're on a Michelin, though, if you're not Jewish. You're just, I don't know. What's a good word? Hey, chat, let's come up with one. What's a good word for half beaner? Where's the chat? I got too many windows open here. What's a good one for half beaner? I'm looking at Rumble and Odyssey chat. Let's see here. We got mulatto, but that's for blacks. Taco nigger, but I feel like that's for Groiper. That's a good one. High Priest King Terry. That's That's an accurate one. That's a little on the nose, though. Let's see here. Taco Bell Mexican. That's all right. It's all right. A little long. A little long. Let's see here. We got Tex-Mex. Yeah, it's all right. Beans and rice. I feel like that you'd have to be like half Chong for that to work. Mongrel. You know what? Now you know what? We already have one. Melanoid. Melanoid is all encompassing. Right? Melanoid, it just means there's too much melanin in there somewhere, right? So I would say optimistically pessimistic fits under the umbrella of melanoid. There we go. And then optimistically pessimistic says, also while looking up the term Michelin, Google AI told me about a documentary called Brown Babies. The Michelin Kinder story about mixed German and black babies during American occupation. I haven't seen it, but I bet it's worth a look. Yeah, that's about the black rape babies, isn't it? I will add that as a stream. Black American GIs making rape babies in Germany was a thing. All right, then we got VTuber Nationalist again says, my favorite InfoWars appearance you did was when you talked about how anime was Aryan. I never said that. Then you said that you loved football. Yeah, that didn't happen. And we're going to watch the Super Bowl, the Dallas Niggers being your favorite team. You then closed the segment by saying the Democrats are the real racists. Yeah, I almost wonder how cringe that one I started playing was. Look, if I was already talking about how QAnon was fake and gay, it wouldn't be too bad. That means I was no longer Trumpified. But yeah, I hate. I've been pretty consistent, but I still hate going back and listening to some of my stuff, especially if you go back really far. It's like I was so naive. Well, not like crazy naive, but like way more so than I am now. And yeah. And you gotta remember, when I first went on InfoWars, I didn't stream yet. I was doing pre-recorded videos. And so I could fuck up and re-record and edit and it wasn't a big deal. And I felt really uncomfortable being live the first several times I did it. And especially on a platform like InfoWars, where it was a lot. I mean, that was when they were, well, I guess they still are big, but you know what I mean? Like that was bigger than my channel. And hearing all these, or not hearing, but like, being live in front of all those people freaked me out a little bit. And so even when I would just go on other people's streams, which I did a little bit, not a lot, because I hated it. It was really nerve-wracking for me. And so that's another reason I don't want to listen. I don't think I listened back to it after I did it. When it was over, I'm just like, oh, thank God it's done. Like I was like, hopefully that drives more traffic to the channel. The people have heard about Black Pill now, but I did not enjoy it. Like I was just like, it was just stressful because I didn't do live stuff. I mean, now it's second nature. I don't even think about it. But even when I first started doing I think when the Insomnia streams were first called like Pill Stream, and the first couple I was just like sweating bullets as I did it. I just felt like so uncomfortable with it. But now it's totally, now I don't even think about it. But that was a long time ago. Yeah, I don't remember how many times I was on it. I think at least twice, maybe 3 times. I don't think they would have me back on these days. Then we got VTuber Nationalist. That's an interesting term. Has flour tortilla. Flour tortilla is easily the best name you could call a half Mexican. Devin, I'm partially Spanish. What's my slur? Partially Spanish? Well, I don't know. If you're just like Spaniard Spanish, that's white technically. What's like a Spain thing? I don't even know what a Spain thing would be. I don't know. You're white. You're just white. If you're just part like Spanish, then you're just part white. If you're part Mexican, I like the flour tortilla thing. Flour tortilla is good. That's a good one. All right, guys. Let's see here. Let me just double check that we're all good on everything else. Let me check Rumble. Well, Anime Extremist says you missed some more donos on entropy. I don't know if you said that before or after I started going through them. Let me catch up on Rumble here, and then I'll go double check. But I'm pretty sure we're good. Did that one? We did that one. Here we go. The Shogun says I was listening to some Pale Siren the other day, and my basis was like, "What are we in 1999? Defensive and cortisol spiking." I was like, "No, this is white power music." Well, look, the style is obviously from that era. It's purposely, yeah. I mean, I did a style that I liked. So yeah, it's not for everybody. It's like it's very synthy. It's very synth. I'd even say it's probably pre 1999. It's more early 90s, if anything. Yeah. Then we got Fent Fan says, usually I'm Replay Gang. Someone mentioned the band Black Magic SS. 100% check them out, Devin. They are an awesome band. Well, there you go. Look, we got more votes for Black Magic SS. Then we got Fent Fan says, oh, and despite my name, I'm not actually a fentanyl user. Fentanyl is for niggers. Unfortunately, a lot of white people fall into it. Well, they I think they automatically lose their status as white when that happens. If you're a fentanyl user, you can't also be white unless you get off that shit. Then we got Mechanized Doom says, Devin, Mexicans refer to half-breed Mexicans as nopale, which means cactus. It's a derogatory term shaming them for being half white. Nopale, huh? Yeah, there's like if you buy the cactus pads for food, they do call them nopales or something. I probably not saying it right, I'm sure, but that is true. It's like saying cactus pad. Then we got Negro Spritzer, who expresses his extreme anger and disgust of darkies, Hebes, the nopale, I guess. The Navajos, the Muslims. I don't have a good one anymore. And then we got the slopes, the dot heads, the fags, and the trannies, etc. We got Cage Mushinjaro says, Mud person bucks stay black-pilled. Mud person bucks stay black-pilled? I'm not sure what that means exactly. All right, guys. Well, I think that's everything, right? I said I'll double check entropy. I think we got them. I think you sent that before I got them all. Yeah, that looks all like we did those. Did all those. That looks familiar. Yeah, we did that one. Yeah, we did all those. We did all those. Yeah, we did all those. I think we're caught up. If I missed one, let me know, but I think we got it. All right. All right, guys. Like I said, big announcement very soon. Very soon. It's what you guys think. Well, it's what a lot of you guys think it is. And I will let you know probably sooner rather than later. In the meantime, of course, you guys have a good rest of your weekend. For Black Pilled, I am, of course, Devin Stagg.
Good afternoon. A photo has surfaced that a lot of people are claiming is proof that the Roswell UFO incident was real. It's a picture of an alien-type creature, and they claim it was taken in 1947 in Roswell. Who better to check it out than our Roswell reporter, Cheyenne Cope. She hit the UFO museum to see what people there think. Cheyenne.
Well, Kim, the picture definitely has people talking at the UFO museum. It's one of the first things you hear when you mention Roswell. Aliens. And people come from all over the country to see them.
I'm a firm believer in aliens.
Well, this week, a never-before-seen picture was released that some people believe is more proof that a UFO did crash here back in 1947.
According to Kodak, yes, it is real. It hasn't been doctored. It hadn't been touched. It is from that time period, from the photographers that were in this area in 1947.
The photo was revealed at a conference in Mexico City on Tuesday. Someone claimed they found it in a box in an attic in Sedona, Arizona, along with pictures of Clark Gable, Bing Crosby, and Dwight Eisenhower. While a lot of people are calling it just another hoax, it's definitely fueling the debate again over what's known as the Roswell UFO incident. Mark Briscoe is the executive director of the UFO Museum. He says he can't say for sure if the slide is real, but that if it is, it could be a big deal.
I guess, okay, it'd be a game changer. I mean, either you're a believer or you're not, or you're a skeptic.
So what did people visiting the museum today think?
I'm skeptical.
Of course, it's a lot more fun to believe it could have been aliens. So no, I can't say I believe one way or the other, but I'm definitely open-minded about it.
You got punched in the face by the Fresh Prince.
Tonight, history was made on the White House lawn as humanity made first contact with extraterrestrial life.
His name is Zorg. He is an extra cholesterol.
President sat down for what was meant to be a historic, peaceful exchange, but quickly realized
he's here just to fuck with me. Who sent you, Putin? China? I saw the documentary, Independence Day.
destroy it! Zorg the alien caused a chaos of destruction before sabotaging the president's teleprompter.
America so shit. The shittest. Zigzags, Pineapple Moon, Zorg is life, Earth sex.
He is currently missing.